My fiancé let his mom dictate our wedding, including asking me not to wear white. Here's how I took back control of my life. Original post. Have you ever seen I Love a Mama's Boy? Well, that's my life basically. I, 27F, have been with my fiancé John, 28F, since high school. We dated and broke up because his mother Debbie, 53F, convinced him we were too young to be in love. We broke up and went to college. During my sophomore year we started talking on socials again. He apologized and said he missed me. We got back together. Cue the waterworks. Debbie literally cried the first time she saw we were back together and told John that I have done witchcraft on him. I've always respected Debbie out of respect for my mother and upbringing. I was not raised to go back and forth with my elders, but she definitely abuses that. Since John and I decided to get back together, she has tried to hook him up with women from her church, her job, and even asks her friends for their daughters to give it a shot. John denies all of them and Debbie says that I'm controlling. John has told her to stop, but not in a way I feel she gets the point. Anyway, 3 months ago John proposed. Deb didn't come to the engagement party. Cool. She didn't come to the family dinner we had so both sides could meet. Cool. John's dad came and apologized for his ex's behavior. He left her when John graduated high school. I told him don't worry about it. The problems really began when John decided to confront his mother about how she's behaving toward our whole engagement. This turned on the light bulb in his brain, as he's always tried to ignore it and tell me to ignore her. She gave him a sob story about how she got pregnant with him before marriage and never really got to have a wedding, and this is triggering her. She had a shotgun wedding at the courthouse. He asked her what she needed to feel comfortable and she responded that if she wore white and I wore a soft pink or lavender she would feel comfortable. My fiancé for some reason thought this was a fair compromise. He also said, not asked, that his mom could walk me down the aisle so she can get her moment in her dress. I told him absolutely not, and we got into an argument about it. I told him that it's insane that he would argue with me to defend his mom's honor, but wouldn't do the same the other way around. He accused me of being petty and selfish. It was bad. We both have agreed to cool off, but by how heated it got I could tell we both almost agreed to call it off. Now we're in a weird space and I love John, but now see how much he lets her impact our life. I just imagine her sitting at home with this evil grin knowing she's ruining my relationship with John and he's just putty in her hands. I think I should just call off the wedding. AIO? Or is it just a color? Top comments. Ducky's mom. This isn't about a dress color, it's about control and possibly a dash of humiliation. Do you really want to put down roots, start a family, with a man willing to bend backwards for his mommy to the point of telling his bride she can't wear white but his mom gets the glory? I shudder to think what having kids with this man would look like. Hallucinogenic, he can marry his mother in her white dress then. What an absolutely unhinged request. Any self-respecting man would be appalled to even bring this to his intended bride. Anon, 466544. You're not overreacting, but do you want a husband who will prioritize his mother's feelings over yours? Because this will not change after you get married. This is him showing you his priorities. Update 1. Hey everyone, not sure if this is the update everyone wanted, but this is what happened since my last post. I laid out a couple of talking points that I couldn't articulate over the rage. I met up with John after work at home. I was at the gym letting off steam. We spoke on everything and made plans to speak to his mother. John came home remorseful. He told me he was anxious about it and brought it up to a coworker and friend about how I don't want to compromise. Apparently his friend, God bless his soul, went off on him about him being cringy. This angered me. So when I say it's a problem but another man tells you and now you see the other side? I brought up my talking points, him being easily manipulated. This was also proved when I said he would listen to whatever another man said before his partner. Even though his friend agreed with me, it hurt that he didn't listen to me. His mom went out of her way to break us up with this silly request. He was way more open to this theory now, knowing how cringe he looks even telling this situation to someone else. I compared it to a father removing a bride's wedding garter. He got the point. He agreed to his mom's crazy request before even talking to me. He claimed he didn't. He told her he'll see how I feel about it and just brought it up to me. I asked why he did not see that his mother walking down the aisle on his wedding day was extremely creepy. He said it's just a dress in his eyes. He just didn't want his mom to miss the wedding. I told him there will be no wedding if he doesn't straighten up. He said he understood. Me showing him how blatantly obvious it was that she hates me. She didn't even ask to wear white alongside me, which is still weird, but that I don't wear white at all as if I'm some impure whore. Thanks Reddit, because I wasn't even thinking of that one. He said he didn't see it that way. He just knew she hadn't been showing up because she said seeing me in white hurts her. So I said, do you not hear your own mom saying she wants to be the bride herself? That she can't stand it being me? It finally looked like a ding went off in his head. Me asking him what role would she play in our wedding, childbirth, Mother's Day and everything to come? Would I always come second place? He assured me I wouldn't, and he realizes how bad he fucked up. He was just trying to keep the peace. I asked by always making her happy and making me miserable. I refused to live my life this way. He agreed and said he was sorry and that he wouldn't want me to be miserable. We have no children yet, but we created a plan and how to deal with any big milestone. She won't be there for anything unless I'm comfortable with it. And I won't be unless she does a 180. I asked what his mom said to change his mind, and you all guessed it, she cried. She cried about how her baby was getting taken away from her. How she never got her wedding. How his dad left her and she was alone and had no one else. That she felt sick and just wanted to experience a real wedding before she dies. She is perfectly healthy unless there's something she hasn't told us? Elle just told him if that was enough to manipulate him, what's to say he won't turn on me again? He said his friend and dad talked sense into him about how he was going to lose me. I told him today was the last straw for me. He had to do 4 things to keep me engaged to him if he even cared to. Go LC with his mom and do not let her make any decisions on our wedding. Which will be postponed another year to see if he actually sticks to his word. He has to go to counseling, individual and couples counseling. He has to speak to his mom with me present about her behavior toward me, because every time he goes by himself he comes back with a reason why he left it alone. He must create strong boundaries and learn to uphold them. He agreed. Then came the bad part. I showed him the post. I felt so bad as he read everyone rip him to shreds in the comments. I could see how uncomfortable he was as he read how much of a mama's boy he was and other things about his mom. He was hurt that I agreed that I should leave in some comments. He read for a few minutes until he saw someone call him a spineless "see you next Tuesday," and then gave my phone back. He said it was really harsh, but I had to show him how crazy the situation sounded, even if it was just to keep the peace on a surface level. Him reading the post was icing on the cake. He said he saw everyone telling me to leave and his heart physically started hurting knowing that he deserved it. We called his dad, who I'm no longer calling future FIL because I will call this wedding off tomorrow if he doesn't have my back when we speak to his mom. John's dad Dan, who I'll name since he's a big part of this update. Dan also read John the riot act again. He was relieved John decided to get his act together. We agreed to go to Deb's house tomorrow with Dan and John's aunt. My dad is tagging along. John has said he will tell his mother that she can't under any circumstances make our wedding about her. He also said if she does cry or try to guilt trip him he will tell her he's going NC. I feel terrible as getting a man to stop talking to his mother isn't something I ever thought I even wanted. I doubt Debbie will come around, especially not tomorrow with all of us against her. I don't know if John will backtrack as soon as he gets there. I have explained if he doesn't grow a spine I'm leaving. He either can marry me or marry his mom. But that's my ultimatum. He said he chooses me. We'll see, I guess. This all should make me happy, but I still feel icky. I'll update tomorrow after we all talk to Debbie. Update 2. Hey everyone, I'm back with the last update. This is a bit long, so buckle up. Some people reached to disrespect me. I honestly don't care if you don't believe my story or find me annoying, but messaging me, calling me names, being disrespectful and or saying I shouldn't wear white to my own wedding is classless. I won't respond, and I genuinely hope you all get the help you need for whatever trauma makes you that much of an angry person. To all the people who have reached out with positive vibes and advice, thank you so much, you cutie patooties. Anyway, John and I met up after work and we headed to pick up Dan. John's aunt couldn't make it. My dad was meeting us there. I had really bad anxiety. I told Dan and Dad they should give us a few before knocking so she doesn't feel ambushed. They agreed. Here's the part everyone was waiting for. We get to Debbie's. My heart feels like I'm going up the world's tallest roller coaster slowly. John is quiet. We get there and he gives her a firm but respectful "Hey Mom." We sit down and John tells her we came to talk to her. She asked what's wrong. John got right into it. He bluntly said to her that her actions toward me for years have been petty. Her not showing up for any of our wedding events was unacceptable to him. He flat out asked her why she has a problem with me. I genuinely thought he was going to start with the dress situation. He went for the root of it all. Debbie acted like she had no idea what he was talking about. She has actively tried to get him to cheat, leave me for other women, but in that moment was shocked, and doesn't know where this was coming from. She said she has no problems with me and loves me like a daughter. She looked at me like she expected me to talk, but like I said to you all, I wanted to see what John had to say. He asked her to be honest and named all the times he's recalled that she insulted me to my face and behind my back. He mentioned she has also tells him he could do better every time I'm not around. This was news to me, but am I shocked? No. Deb was livid. She genuinely couldn't believe he outed her like that. She starts going off on him, calling him disrespectful and saying he was disrespecting his own mother for an outsider. She kept saying, I know she made you do this. I know she's the one making you disrespect me like this. John was trying to reason with her and get her to calm down. I text Dan and my dad to come in. Once they were inside, Deb became a different person. She was startled as she wasn't expecting them, and then all of the things she was just saying went out of the window. She turned to Dan and my dad and said John walked in and just started yelling at her because of me. My dad looked at me and I shook my head no. Once Dan and Dad got in, everything was calmer for a little while. She went back to denying she didn't like me. They all told her that it was obvious. That the dress request was shameful of her. She immediately replied, it's shameful that I won't let her son spend time with her. John said that's not true. At this point I'm burning inside. I wanted to correct all of her inaccuracies, but I stood quiet. John asked her what's the real issue with OP. Deb starts saying how she knew I was going to be an issue since we were in HS. She said that once John got with me, his grades started dropping, which isn't true. That he stopped making time for family. Also, not true. That he once didn't show up to celebrate Mother's Day with her a few times because of my birthday. My birthday is in April, Mother's Day is in May. That once we got back together he forgot about her completely because I made him abandon her. He goes to her house at least 3 times a week. She said the fact that we had the engagement party without checking how she felt about it was wrong, and all the evidence she needed to see what kind of woman I am. My dad pointed out that she didn't pay for the engagement dinner to have any input on it. Dan asked her was she thinking of asking to wear white at our wedding? Why is she so hungry for attention? Her face got red and she went off. She told Dan maybe if he would have properly married her and gave her a real wedding she wouldn't feel left out. Dan straight up called bullshit and said that she didn't want to have a real wedding even though he tried to convince her. The reason being that her mother told her pregnant brides are tacky. She started crying. I honestly felt bad for Debbie here. Mothers, be nice to your daughters or you'll create Debbies. My dad got everyone to calm down. John finally spoke again and told his mom that he can't keep defending her when she won't even try to respect me. That for his sanity and our relationship, he's going LC. Deb kept crying and said that John can't leave her for dead, she's the only mother he'll ever have. Mothers are forever. Wives are not. I'm not even his wife yet, and I'm already tearing apart the family. He kept going. He told her that we are going to get married. She can't respect me or stop crossing boundaries, she'll get cut off completely. That his visits are dropping down to 1 every 2 weeks and that she needs to call less. She started going off. She knew it. I'm doing something for him. What did I do to her son? I'm a manipulator and a problem. She told my dad he raised a demon. My dad shot back at her to watch her mouth. John kept shouting, Mom stop, Mom stop. But she kept screaming and then she started hyperventilating. Whoever called it, you might be able to see the future. She was gripping John's arm saying she can't breathe. This was when I said to myself, oh no. He's about to flip-flop. He looked at me and I knew he knew what I was thinking. John got her a cup of water, then asked his dad if he could make sure his mom was okay and asked my dad to take Dan home. Dan and Dad agreed and his mom started crying louder. She literally screamed, I can't breathe, as we walked out so he could hear her. I felt fucking terrible and I finally spoke. I told John I'm sorry. And I understand if he felt bad. He said he knew she was faking it but his instincts wanted to run over and make sure she was okay. I asked, are you? He said no, but he looked really sad about it. My dad walked out behind us. My dad has never seen this side of Deb. Neither have I. She's always been catty or shady toward me, but this was insane. My dad straight up told John that his mom needed help with her mental health. John said he's going to talk to his aunt about getting her help. We went home and John cried. He said he cried because he watched his mom villainize him and tell others that he just walked in and verbally abused her. He said it reminded him of the times he would fight with his dad because his mom would say Dan would just come from work and yell at her for no reason. I guess it was déjà vu for him. He was silent after she said that, so I do believe it struck a nerve with him. He decided to go NC for now. I did ask him if he was okay with me posting this part and he said yes. Before we went to Deb's house I called a couple of counselors in our area to check availability, and our first couples therapy session is next month. It's a little while away. He called his provider today to check for a therapist within his insurance and got an appointment for himself for the 23rd. The ball is rolling and John seems like he's on the same page as me. I know this is killing him though. Dan called us and let us know he got Deb to calm down. He said he spoke to her as best as he could about her harming her own relationship with John, but she didn't want to hear it. Thank you, Reddit. I really didn't expect this to blow up like this. The advice and well wishes I got from this was so overwhelming, in a great way. While I should be happy, something about it all just makes me feel down. I hope that Debbie gets better and we can one day have her in our lives. Something about that comment about her mother made me hurt for little Debbie. Hopefully one day I'll get to hear her stories. Now I'm going back to my regular life and hopefully I won't ever have a dramatic update for you guys ever again. After my stepdaughter's passing, I found my husband and his ex-wife in our bed. I chose to cut all ties and start anew. Original post. My stepdaughter Becca, 14F, died 4 weeks ago. I've been in her life since she was 7 years old. We were extremely close. My husband Derek, 40 million, his ex-wife Sam, 38 feet, and I, 35 feet, get along very well. There has never been an issue in the 7 years that I've been with Derek. Sam has always been kind to me. She didn't even care that Becca called me mom, too. Right after Becca's passing, Sam had so much anxiety and depression that she was unable to be by herself. She has no family besides us, so we invited her to stay with us. Sam hardly leaves the house. She mostly just sleeps in Becca's room, which is completely understandable. I always tell her that I'm here if she needs me and that I want her to take her time grieving and that there is no pressure to go back to her home. Today I needed to run some errands, so I asked Sam if she'd like to join me to get out of the house a little bit, but she declined and said she'd rather just stay at the house and sleep. I told Derek that I was leaving and that I would be back in 2-ish hours. He works from home. I also told him to check on Sam every once in a while, and maybe try getting her to eat something. After stopping at the post office, I realized I forgot my library book that I needed to return, so I went back home to get it. As soon as I walked in the door, I heard moaning coming from mine and Derek's bedroom. I immediately knew what was happening, and my heart completely broke at the moment. I wasn't completely sure what to do, but I ended up deciding to confront them, so I walked to the bedroom and opened the door and began yelling at them both. Sam started having an anxiety attack and ran to the bathroom while Derek kept apologizing profusely. I asked him what the hell was happening. He told me that he made himself and Sam some lunch and they began talking about Becca, and shared some memories. And then Sam ended up kissing him and he didn't pull back, and then it ended with them in our bed. They're begging me to understand that it was just grief that caused them to become intimate and that they both made a mistake. I don't know what to do. I love this man. And I love Sam. I'm heartbroken that they did this to me and put me in this position. I feel so stuck. Relevant comments. Great Championship 252. That would be hard for me. I understand grieving, but how is this excusing cheating? What happens next time he is sad? Edit. I misspoke when I said sad. Obviously this is something beyond devastating. I still don't think it can be used as an excuse. OP. I don't want to excuse his cheating. I think I want to divorce him, but I'm anxious about doing it right after we lost Becca. Spellbound mama, probably together. Do you both own the home? If it's in your name, change the locks. Stay strong and don't listen to his excuses. I am so sorry this happened to you during such a difficult time. Oh up. Exactly what I was thinking if I'm being honest. And yes, we both own it. When I told him to leave, he kept saying sorry and then said that he would leave and respect me wanting him gone for a while. Impulsive X thoughts. Are you seeing a therapist perhaps? You're dealing with a lot right now, it might be useful. OP. Yes, I am in therapy. I've been with my therapist for other things for the last 3 years. She's been very helpful. I saw her yesterday and was able to figure some things out. Update 1, May 11th, 2024. I decided that I'm filing for a divorce. I can't ever trust Derek again. It sucks because we had an amazing relationship, I thought. He's always been great, so this was a complete shock to me. Last night Derek came over to talk. He confessed a lot. Turns out it wasn't their first time having sex like most people thought. They've been having sex since 3 months before Becca died. I am completely shocked and heartbroken. Sam also reached out last night and thanked me for everything I've done for her, and told me she was sorry. I didn't respond. I blocked her. I did so much for Sam and considered her a friend, so this hurts a lot, more than I can handle. This is all too much. As hard as this is gonna be, I need to leave Derek and cut them both out of my life. I am ready to do so. I am done. Also, some people are saying I deserve this because I should have known better than to let Sam into our home, around Derek. But, you need to understand that I'm a giving person. I trust people more than I should. I truly thought Sam was an amazing person. I know it's unusual to become friends with your husband's ex-wife, but it's just how it went for us and I shouldn't be blamed for what happened. Thank you to everyone who commented nice things and for the kind messages. You've all been helpful during this insanely difficult time, I appreciate it. Relevant comments, impulsive ex-thoughts. Out of curiosity, what are his excuses for cheating? Those two are going to be in a world of hurt, once the guilt settles in. They're going to be asking themselves why it had to be Becca and will eventually come to the conclusion that it's their punishment for what they've done to you. I can pretty much guarantee you that. Ope. He told me that they just accidentally reconnected one night when I was away at my mom's. He was stressed we weren't conceiving and were having miscarriages, so he vented to Sam, and then somehow that led to sex. It seems so icky to me. How can he vent about our struggles like that and then go and have sex with Sam? It's just awful of him. I don't understand it. Editor's note: remove the first half of the updates as it was a rehash of update number 1, update 2. May 13, 2024. I'm getting lots of questions about some things, so I figured I'd answer a few of them. Have I told anyone about what happened besides my mom? Yes, I told a few friends and some family members. Most of them are supportive of my decision and aren't speaking to Derek. Where is Derek staying? Currently, he's staying at a hotel. Our friends refuse to let him stay with them. He's lost a lot of people due to his awful decisions. Has he tried fighting me on getting a divorce? Yes, he begged me not to file for divorce, but when I told him I needed him to just let me go, and that I was too exhausted to fight him on this, he let it be and agreed to getting a divorce. Why isn't Derek staying with Sam? He told me he didn't want to continue to hurt me, so he told Sam he was done with her for good, and that they have no reason to speak to each other anymore. I have no idea if that'll last and if they'll just end up together, but I truly don't care what they do anymore. I just want peace. What was Derek's excuse for cheating? He told me that they just accidentally reconnected one night when I was away at my mom's. He was stressed we weren't conceiving and were having miscarriages, so he vented to Sam, and then somehow that led to sex. Disgusting of them both, I know. Feel free to ask anything else, and I'll try to answer. Thank you everyone for your support and advice. Relevant comments. OP on what happened to Becca. OP. It was very sudden. She died in a car accident when she was with one of her friends and her friend's parents. OOP on her husband's parents being supportive or not, and if they know about his cheating. OP. I get along with Derek's mom very well, but he's also a mama's boy, so it's kinda complicated. She will always be there for him. He'd stay with her if she didn't live across the country. She knows what he did and told me she had a talk with him but said that he's still her son and she'd help him with anything if he needed it. I'm thinking I need to cut her out of my life too, which makes me really sad because we were close and talked on the phone almost daily. OP on if she has children with her husband. OOP. We've had 6 miscarriages total, all of them were in the first trimester. NSBP. More updates, May 14, 2024. I just found out that he is staying with Sam and not at the hotel. He told me it's too expensive to stay at a hotel and Sam is the only one that'll help him right now. I had a feeling this would happen. Just knowing that they are still probably sleeping together hurts my heart. I talked to a lawyer this morning and we are proceeding with the divorce and Derek agreed to it. It's actually happening, and I feel some relief that he's not fighting me on this. My mom leaves on Sunday. I'm scared to be alone. But I go back to work on Monday, so I'm hoping it'll be a good distraction. I'll keep updating if anything else happens. Thank you everyone, I am so grateful for you all. Relevant comments. Immaculate 329. OP, how did you find out he was staying at his ex-wife's place? Anything he says should be taken with a grain of salt. He is not true to his words in going on contact with Sam. OP. He texted me this morning after we talked to lawyers, and said he just wants to be honest with me. I told him to stop giving me updates on what he's doing in his life and that it's not something I need to know. It seems like he wanted to tell me to hurt me. OP on how she is doing. EOP. Thank you. I'm doing a little better today. My mom and I went on some nature walks and went out into the garden this afternoon. That helped. Becca loved gardening with me, so it made me feel closer to her. Becca's diary. May 15, 2024, I decided to go through some of Becca's stuff today. I just found her diary in a box in the back of her closet. Would it be wrong to read some of it? I feel like it would help me feel closer to her, but part of me feels like it's wrong too. I haven't told Derek that I found it either, and I'm unsure if I should tell him. What would you do? Relevant comments. OP on if she was closer with Becca prior to her sudden passing. OP. Becca and I were very close. It felt like she told me anything and everything, but I honestly think all parents feel that way about their kids, so I'm kinda nervous to read it. Just a little update. May 19th, 2024. I figured it's been a few days, so I should give a little update. My mom is leaving in a couple hours, so I'll be alone. I'm kinda nervous about it. She helped me stay distracted and kept me going. IDK how I'm gonna handle her being gone. I go back to work tomorrow, first day back since Becca passed away. I'm looking forward to it though because it'll keep me distracted. Also, I did read some of Becca's diary. It made me love her even more. She was such a sweetheart. I went back a few months and saw that she noticed some weird behavior between Derek and Sam. Didn't mention that she knew of the affair, but she just wrote that she thought it was kinda strange that they all three would hang out more than usual, without me. I might read more, but so far I haven't found anything that's disturbing, just her being a teenager and talking about crushes, fights with friends, happy family memories, etc. Tomorrow I'm also talking to my lawyer, so I might have more updates on that. Thanks for the continuous love and support everyone. Last update for a while. May 26th, 2024 started randomly getting a lot more messages, comments, so I figured I'd do another little last update. My first week back at work went great. I wasn't expecting it to go so well, but thankfully it did. My coworkers were so helpful and patient with me. On Friday night I decided I didn't want to stay home all weekend alone, so I decided to drive up to my mom's. It helps that I have a 3-day weekend so I can spend more time with her. I'm heading back home tomorrow. Also, for those of you that have messaged me hateful things for reading Becca's diary, I just have to say, you aren't in my shoes right now. Telling me I'm a bad mom because I'm reading her diary is just ridiculous. I learned so much more about her, about how caring and sweet she is, and it made me love her even more. It's how I'm able to feel so close to her right now, so please don't tell me I'm a bad parent for just trying to get by one of the hardest times of my life. You have no idea what it's like. I don't have much of an update, so this will be it. I'll come back and update once the divorce happens though. Thank you to those of you that have been nothing but kind and helpful. You helped me feel less alone. I'll forever be grateful. Sam saw my Reddit post and is threatening to sue me. June 1st, 2024. Sam made a fake FB profile to message me and tell me she wants to sue me for telling strangers about what happened. Derek supports her apparently. I don't need this. Am I not allowed to vent about my life to people online? I just want life to get better. I'm so tired. Fuck you, Sam. Fuck you, Derek. Edit. Sam is in the comments and messaged me on here too. Blocked her. Additional information from OOP on the message from Sam. OOP. No, I just ignored her. It might be an empty threat just to make my life harder, but I'm unsure. Her message said, so I was scrolling TikTok and ended up on an account where they read Reddit posts, and guess whose post they read? Yours. First you tell friends and family and then you go to a bunch of strangers and tell them our life story? I can't believe you. It isn't just your business to tell. Becca would be so disappointed in you. Be prepared cause I think I'm gonna be suing you for this. This was no one else's business. You did this to yourself, remember that? I'm actually baffled. She thinks Becca would be disappointed in me. BADF. I don't think I can do this anymore. June 11th, 2024. I have been as strong as I can be, but I have been really struggling. So much is going on and I'm just so tired. How can I keep going? I just want to be with Becca. I miss her. I miss her smile. I miss her laugh. I miss how she'd try to make you laugh when you were sad by telling dad jokes. I miss how she liked being in the garden with me. I miss seeing all her new drawings. I miss her beautiful eyes. I miss everything about her. I just want her back. I need her back. Edit. I am okay. I just needed a space to vent. I was getting so many messages asking if I'm alright, and I just wanted to say thank you to those that reached out. I am okay. I will be okay. Some days are harder than others, but I think I'll get through this. I'm so grateful for the little community I have here. Thank you all so much. Sam took her life on June 20th, 2024. July 4th, 2024. Sam ended up taking her own life on June 20th. I am still trying to process everything. She had hurt me deeply, but this isn't something I wanted whatsoever. And Derek blames me. I feel so many things and I'm gonna be away for a while again, but I wanted to update you all. Thanks for the love everyone. Comments OP on how she is doing after Becca's death and now Sam's passing. OP. I hope they're together again. And I hope they're both at peace too. That's all I hope for. Thank you. Taking a break from Reddit and going on a trip in a week. July 11th, 2024. Well, I'm doing it. I'm taking the advice that so many of you had. I'm going on a trip since my job doesn't need me till the middle of August. I was so lucky I had my mom come stay with me a lot, and had my best friend come stay with me when my mom couldn't. But I felt like I was asking too much of them. So I decided that maybe traveling might actually be a good idea. In a week, I'm going to Norway. Becca and I always wanted to go there one day. It was on our bucket list. I'm actually excited. I'm also thinking of getting a pet when I come back. But might wait till I move. Thank you to those that recommended I do this. Becca would be happy I'm doing this. She'd be so frickin' thrilled for me. You probably won't hear from me for a while. I'm taking a long break from Reddit and all my social media. I think it's best for me. But just know, I love and appreciate all of you that have been there for me. I would have been so lost without some of you. Yours truly, Alyssa. A few updates. October 24th, 2024. Hi everyone, I haven't been on here in so long. I got so many messages asking me to do an update, so here it is. Norway was absolutely breathtaking. I had so much fun and met some amazing people while I was there. I plan on returning in the future for sure. A couple weeks ago was the 6-month anniversary of Becca's death. It's been hard, but it's getting easier to live everyday life, but it also pains me to say that, because I feel guilty for moving on and healing. IDK, if that makes sense, maybe it does to those who have also lost someone close. I moved out of Derek and my house a month ago and got myself a cozy little house all to myself, and oh yeah, I got a dog. His name is Charlie and he's a darling little Cavalier Spaniel. He's been great. I absolutely love him. Also, I am awfully divorced as of last week. It was a very easy divorce and I'm so happy about that. But Derek didn't want any of Becca's things when we tried figuring out who gets what. He left it all to me. I tried hard to get him to take something because I feel like he'll regret it, but he said he didn't want anything, so I have all of Becca's stuff. I have no idea why he didn't want anything, but I have it all in the guest bedroom right now. I'm trying to figure out what to do with everything. Derek is apparently an alcoholic now and quit his job. He seems to be doing terribly. Besides all that, IDK, if I have anything else to share, I just want to say thank you again to all of my supporters. I've made some friends here and I am so thankful for you all. I appreciate every one of you. Top comments. Commenter 1. Alyssa, I think of you often and check back periodically for an update. I'm so happy to hear that your trip went well. Equally exciting to hear that you've moved on with your life, have a new house, and a dog. Cavaliers are so cute and sweet. Enjoy. Becca's things belong with to you. You will know how best to honor her. Wishing you the best life has to offer. Thank you so much for letting us know how you're doing. Commenter 2. I'm so happy you enjoyed Norway. I spent a summer there many moons ago when I was 17 years old. Lived with a host family in a tiny little town in the western fjords. It was amazing. I'm also glad to hear you are moving forward your life. You should definitely preserve Becca's things. I imagine Derek didn't want them. He intends to head down a path of self-destruction from which he may not come back. It's a shame he couldn't face his grief and find healthy ways to cope with the pain. If he had, he likely wouldn't have destroyed your marriage and played a part in the destruction of Sam. Last we heard from you, Derek was blaming you for Sam's death. Does he still blame you? Or is he too drunk to care anymore? Hold Becca in your heart and remember all the ways she was amazing. You may end up being the only one left to carry her memory into the future. Called off my wedding after my fiancé allowed kids but banned my daughter, blaming her for ruining our engagement party by being ill. Earlier this week, Addison, 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and I, 38 degrees male, were about to tie the knot, but I abruptly called it off. For the previous 3 years, we had been together. Everything was going well until we got engaged, which was around 6 months ago. When we started talking about who we wanted to invite to the wedding, things started to go south. Naturally, I wanted my daughter to be present because I have one. Addison, however, was very clear that she did not want any children present at the wedding. Given that she has 2 children of her own from a previous marriage and 6 nieces and nephews with whom she is very close, this was an odd position. Given that the majority of those we invited were also parents, I couldn't understand why she didn't want any children at the wedding. At first, we argued about it a lot, but I finally gave in. I grudgingly agreed to keep my daughter away from the wedding, provided she didn't invite any children from her side of the family. To put things in perspective, my daughter is 14 years old, so she is not even a little child. However, Addison was unaffected by that. She informed me that she wanted a stress-free wedding and that she didn't want any exceptions, even though she loved my daughter, her own children, and even her nieces and nephews. She said that by making exclusions, she didn't want to alienate anyone who had children. I was really angry about it, but I reasoned that because she had already made up her mind, there wasn't much I could do if she really wanted a wedding without children. The actual wedding was going to be small, Just a few close friends and family would be coming, and we would be being married in my parents' backyard. I decided to let it go after reasoning that the kids wouldn't be missing out on much fun. Just a few days prior to the wedding, everything changed. Kate, Addison's younger sister, emailed me while I was at work. She was requesting approval for the email, which included pictures of her two daughters wearing wedding-appropriate attire. I was initially perplexed. Then I saw that Kate had sent the email to our shared wedding email address, which we had set up especially for vendor communications and RSVPs. It was too late when I realized it must have been an accident. I had previously viewed and captured a screenshot of the email. I tried to check the email again a few minutes later, but Addison had already erased it. I had finally figured out what was going on by that point. Addison had claimed that there would be no children at the wedding, but in reality, she was planning to invite her own children as well as relatives and nephews, but not my daughter. I was incensed at her dishonesty. That day, I didn't say anything as soon as I got home from work. I acted as though nothing was wrong. Addison was being a little odd at first, perhaps because she thought I had read the email and figured out what she was doing. However, Addison calmed down and resumed his typical behavior once I kept everything a secret. I knew she was planning something behind my back, and this was around 2 days before the wedding. I therefore made the decision to ask my daughter about her feelings on Addison. Even before I proposed, I had discussed this with her, but since I was really reconsidering the wedding, I felt it would be best to have another conversation. In retrospect, I'm really happy I took that choice. My daughter told me that Addison had always been kind to her prior to the engagement. But after that, something had changed. My daughter clarified that she hadn't brought it up sooner because she didn't want to spoil my happiness with Addison after witnessing it. Addison, however, had been acting strangely toward her after the engagement. Addison behaved completely differently when I wasn't there whenever she came to visit. My custody agreement states that I get to spend half the month with my daughter, which is a substantial amount of time. When I got home from work, my daughter claimed that Addison would activate the charm, but she ignored her the rest of the time. Prior to the engagement, this wasn't the case. It was unexpected and disheartening to hear this. My daughter also revealed that she thought Addison no longer wanted her in her life when she learned that he intended a wedding without children. She believed it wouldn't matter, so she didn't even try to go. I felt so bad about myself for letting Addison convince me not to invite my own kid to my wedding. I made the decision to call off the wedding at that point. I talked to Addison the day before the wedding. After that, I didn't bother returning home. Addison called me multiple times, but I didn't answer. I told my parents to inform her that I would meet her on the wedding day because I knew she would get in touch with them next. I stayed with my daughter all day instead of returning home. By the end of the day, we both felt much better. I spent the night at a hotel after dropping her off at her mother's house. I arrived at my parents' house the following morning, exactly 1 hour before the ceremony was set to start. A few people had already arrived when I got there, including Addison's dad and both of her sisters, Kate and Amelia. Naturally, all 6 of their children were present, along with Addison's 2 children, who were all under 12 and running around the area. Addison hurried to meet me at the door as soon as she noticed me. She started by saying that Kate and Amelia couldn't leave their children behind, despite her having informed them that the wedding was child-free. She went on to say that her parents thought it would be odd if she married without her own children being there. I could tell she thought I was crazy because she was making up all these absurd excuses. However, I remained silent until she had finished speaking. Then she began asking me strange questions like where I had been the night before and why I was dressed the way I was. I simply got out my phone, showed her a screenshot of the email that Kate had inadvertently sent to our joint wedding email account, and laughed in her face. That was sufficient to silence her. She realized right away that she had been apprehended and that she couldn't get away with it by talking. It was already too late when she began to apologize. I informed her that I had spent the day before with my daughter and discovered that she had been treating my daughter differently for the past few months, ever since we became engaged. I didn't even want an explanation or an answer at this point. I simply informed her that we were done. She clearly did not value my daughter, therefore I made it clear that I would not marry her. I had never treated her children any differently than I had my own, so it was very painful. However, I didn't believe it was a good idea for us to get married because it was obvious that she didn't really value my family or me. I spoke up and didn't wait for her to answer. I simply left. I didn't turn around even though she was shouting for me. I had nothing better to do, so I got into my car, drove to a hotel, and napped for a long time. My phone was inundated with texts when I got up at lunchtime. Addison's family was unhappy, and everyone who had been invited to the wedding was perplexed. However, I was unable to care. I gave my friends and family a quick rundown of the circumstances and then let it go. I visited my daughter later. I informed her that I intended to spend more time with her and that I had canceled the wedding. I acknowledged that, without even recognizing it, we had begun to drift apart during the previous few months. She used to come to me right away if she had a problem with someone, so I realized something was wrong. She hadn't spoken, though, with Addison. At least we were able to work things out even if we both were a little emotional. Speaking of Addison, that's where I've been having trouble. 5 days have passed since the day we were meant to tie the knot, and by now, almost everyone is aware of the reason I called off the wedding. Her dishonesty was just as much of a factor as the way she treated my daughter. Being dishonest is, in my opinion, a major deal breaker in any relationship. I've already been cheated on twice, and I can tell you that it always begins with a simple fib. She believed that she could get away with telling such a large falsehood. I don't believe that canceling the wedding at the last minute was incorrect on my part. Yes, it was sudden and rude, but considering that she had intended to surprise me with the kids at the last minute, I believe it was reasonable. Her family feels I'm being harsh and is angry that I didn't offer her an opportunity to clarify. Addison has been contacting me constantly, as has the rest of her family. Addison's only justification is that she had good reason to invite my kid, but she couldn't beg me not come. She also finds it quite offensive that I didn't think our relationship needed at least a chat before terminating it in that manner, even after we had been together for so long. She has stated that she will discuss her reasons in person, but she has not disclosed them. How she could possibly defend her decision to not invite my daughter to our wedding is beyond me. To the best of my knowledge, she and my daughter have never had any problems together. I still believe like I ought to have talked to her first though. I've been feeling guilty for the past few days, and I'm not sure why. I believe that rather than acting as though everything was all right up until the last minute, I ought to have been honest with her. I should have gone right home from work and addressed her the day I learned what she was planned. I could have prevented a lot of the drama that is going on now if I had done that. I've been bothered by the fact that I feel like a bit of a jerk for not handling things better. Am I the jerk for abruptly calling off the wedding and not talking to my fiancé? First update. 3 days have passed since I posted, and I'm still at the motel. I contacted Addison today and informed her that she needed to vacate the house right now. Since it was my house before she moved in, I believe it is only right that she must depart now that we are done. She has till the end of the month, in my opinion, to find a place. Since sleeping in a hotel isn't a practical long-term solution, I intend to crash with a buddy until then. I feel much better about my choice aside from that. My friends have encouraged me that, in the end, I made the decision to become a father because it is what I value most. I don't believe I have to apologize for putting my daughter first. People can avoid me if they have an issue with that. I don't give a damn about Addison's motivations. I don't think I need to hear them at all if she can't send me an explanation. I'm not interested in seeing her at the moment. Since it's obvious that her parents and sister were aware of her scheme the entire time and kept quiet about it, I've also barred them. I thought I got along well with her family, so this is disappointing. Before everything that transpired, I firmly believed that I had become a member of their family. I hadn't replied to Addison much up until last night, but I did advise her to begin searching for a new residence. I also informed her that she may text me to explain why she didn't want my kid to attend the wedding. But I also made it apparent that there was no turning back once the harm had been done. She has not responded to that message. I apologize to those who inquire, but I have no idea why she would be acting in such a different way around my kid. Since I'm genuinely interested, I've talked to my daughter extensively, but she too doesn't know. My daughter was as perplexed as I was when I showed her the messages and we talked about Addison's actions. She informed me that she was surprised when Addison began acting differently around her. In the early days following the engagement, my daughter even made an attempt to patch things up, but Addison remained aloof and uninterested in her attempts. Addison appears to be the issue here, based on what I've heard. Although I am aware that many children struggle to understand their parents' separation, my daughter is not one of those children, and she has no justification for lying about Addison. To begin with, I was never married to her mother. We dated for 2 years before splitting up when she was 3 years old. She hardly recalls our time together. For the last 5 years, my ex has also been married. I have no doubt that my daughter was not at all offended by my choice to move on and wed Addison. Until recently, they had a nice connection. I'm not claiming my kid is flawless, even though she may be in my opinion, but I do know she doesn't lie, especially when it comes to something like this. She is aware of how much I respect openness and truthfulness in my loved ones. When she claims that Addison began acting differently, I genuinely believe her. Nevertheless, I doubt Addison will reveal her motivations. I texted her a few hours ago and she hasn't responded yet. She probably hasn't received my message because she works from home and must be on her phone all the time for her job. She always responds right away, so I'm certain she's ignoring me. However, it makes no difference. All I want is for her to leave my home so I may resume my comfortable life. I have to go back to work in a few days, and staying in this motel is strange. Second update. 3 days have passed since I sent Addison a text. She did respond earlier today. She claimed to understand why I didn't want to see her face to face, but she demanded that we do so she could give me an explanation for why she didn't want my daughter to attend the wedding. Despite the fact that we are no longer together, she said she didn't want me to misinterpret her. Addison said that her reasons were legitimate and that she didn't want me to think she was the villain. She said she didn't want to hurt me, so she lied. That reasoning was absurd because she still caused me pain. I responded in less than 30 minutes, being very clear that I would not be speaking with her face to face. Anything she said had to be sent via text, and that was the end of it. She said it was around an hour ago. She stated that something that occurred at the engagement party was the reason she didn't want my daughter to attend the wedding. Regretfully, my daughter wasn't feeling well on the day of the engagement celebration. I already knew she wouldn't be able to come when it was my turn to keep her for the month. Despite feeling ill, she insisted on going even though I told her she could stay in her room. She desired to join in the festivities. She went back upstairs to relax after spending a few minutes downstairs toasting with everyone. Although some people inquired about her well-being, it didn't cause a significant disturbance. Addison went upstairs to see how my daughter was doing, but he thought she had stolen our thunder. She was chatting and laughing on the phone with a friend. According to Addison, my daughter didn't appear ill at all. Addison, who tends to stir things up, talked to her sisters about her worries rather than to me or my daughter. After the engagement, Addison started to remove herself from my daughter because of this minor miscommunication, which unnecessarily escalated. Addison persuaded herself that my daughter will eventually cause issues because she wasn't thrilled with our marriage. That one small incident was the only source of this view. When Addison told me this, I was appalled, so I didn't even bother answering her reply. I questioned my daughter about Addison's words to put things in perspective. My daughter acknowledged that she was still feeling poorly that day, but she was conversing with a friend. Speaking with a friend was merely a means of self-distraction. It did not indicate that she was not ill. Addison's logic was utterly nonsensical. I think this episode provided Addison a reason to stop acting like she was being kind to my kid, even though I think she may have been insecure from the beginning. Looking back, I'm glad I didn't wed Addison. She would have undoubtedly caused further issues along the road. In hindsight, there were further warning signs. When my daughter was around, Addison would often remark that I didn't spend enough time with her. Ironically, I never voiced any complaints, and she frequently spent comparable amounts of time with her own children. Her behavior as a parent was admirable, in my opinion. When I think back on my earlier posts, I see that Addison was a major factor in my lack of time with my kid. She quietly took up all of my attention, both mentally and practically. I was so committed in our relationship at the time that I didn't realize it. It was too late before the warning signs were noticed. I'm relieved that I was able to end that relationship at last because I didn't want to remain with someone if it meant sacrificing my relationship with my daughter. I'm not really sure how to interpret that absurd message that Addison sent me today. It puzzled me that she destroyed our connection over something so trivial, something that might have been settled with a conversation, so for a long I thought about answering her and telling her precisely how I felt. However, I changed my mind since I didn't think it was worth the hassle. Until it's time for me to go back home, I would much rather ignore her. Unfortunately, since I need my job clothing, it might happen shortly. She needs a somewhere to stay soon, I hope. Although my friends have graciously allowed me to stay with them, I really simply want to return home. Update 3. I made this post 2 days ago. I returned home earlier today to get my clothes and other necessities. I was heading to a friend's apartment and decided to leave the hotel because it was becoming too costly. I made the decision to visit the house and get everything I required. I wasn't sure if Addison would be home because I banned her and didn't respond to her messages after she sent them. Regretfully, she was present when I got there in the afternoon. She obviously wanted to talk and appeared sad to see me. I began gathering my belongings as fast as I could, intending to be done and out of there before anyone could speak. I urged her to start looking for a place so I could move back in as I was ready to leave. She apologized profusely and followed me as I made my way to my car. She claimed she shouldn't have lied or made such a huge deal out of the engagement party event, and she acknowledged that she felt awful about what had transpired. She clarified that she recently got into a battle with her sisters after understanding how their advice had led to the breakdown of our relationship and that they had made it look like a much greater problem than it actually was. Addison pleaded for another chance, saying she would improve her connection with my daughter and me. Hearing her plea made me sad, but it was too late. When I got to my car, I informed her that although I could relate to her feelings, my kid was the most important thing to me. I had a duty to act morally toward my daughter. Addison was clearly about to cry, but I didn't want to deal with it. I drove off after saying a brief goodbye and reminding her to find another home. It was far more difficult to see her in person than it was to text her, even if I felt like a bit of a jerk for leaving like that. I don't regret anything though, it had to be done. I'm staying with a friend for the time being with the hopes that Addison will find somewhere else within the next few weeks. After she leaves, I can return home and carry on with my life, or whatever normal will be going forward. Although it may take some time to get over this, the bright side is that my relationship with my daughter is stronger than it has ever been. Our relationship has returned to its pre-engagement state. There are no secrets between us. She tells me everything about her life once more. Seeing her chat eagerly about her school day over our FaceTime today made it all worthwhile. In a few weeks, we even have a beach vacation planned. I think I could use the break, so I've invited some friends with children her age to come along. Although the last few weeks have been difficult, I have optimism for brighter times to come. Parents funded siblings, ignored me. I built my own success, uncovered their betrayal, and chose a new family over being the forgotten child. Hello, Reddit. I need to talk about something today. I'm 27 years old. I suppose you could say that I've been the one ignored my entire life. My younger brother Chris, 25 million, and older sister Sarah, 29 feet, are my siblings. It would be an understatement to suggest that they were always the golden children. In my parents' view, they could never do anything wrong, but I was just there. Sarah excelled academically as a child, consistently receiving straight A's and participating in all school-related activities before attending a prestigious Ivy League university. It was my parents' obsession. They couldn't stop raving about how delighted they were the moment she received her admission letter, I promise. They invited all of her relatives and friends to this lavish celebration party. We felt as though we were celebrating Sarah's academic achievement with a second Christmas. Chris, however, didn't have to make a concerted effort. For him, everything just appeared to go smoothly. Following Sarah's example, he enrolled in a prestigious graduate program. My parents also ensured that everything was prepared for him. They purchased him a new laptop, helped him move, paid his tuition, and more. Then there was me. I attended a state college instead of an Ivy League school. Although it was a fine school, I had the impression that my parents wouldn't boast about it the way they did about Chris and Sarah. They kind of nodded and muttered something like, "That's great, Michael," when I informed them I had been accepted, but I could tell they weren't really into it. No party, no celebration. If we ordered takeaway that night, I was lucky. I made an effort to ignore it, but as I grew older, I became more aware of how different things were for me than for them. The money was just as important as the attention. Consider the wedding of Sarah. $200,000 is no laughing matter. The setting, the catering, the dress, my parents went all out. They handled it like it was the biggest thing ever. Some members of our family were even flown in from out of state. They covered all of Chris's graduate school expenses and provided him with rent assistance until he was able to support himself. They also took care of his educational loans, so he didn't even need to worry about those. But me? I asked my parents for assistance when I was just starting out in my job and required some work-related tools, things that were necessary to even get started. I received $7,000. Please understand that $7,000 is a substantial sum of money. However, it kind of hurts when you contrast that with $200,000 for a wedding or fully covering someone's tuition. I felt like I was only receiving the bare minimum so they could claim to have been helpful. And it wasn't just the cash. I always felt like the odd one out whenever our family gathered together. Every discourse at family dinners revolved around Chris's most recent accomplishment or Sarah's fancy job. As they sat there, they would discuss their upcoming extravagant plans, vacations, or improvements to their homes. I would be sitting there consuming my meal while attempting to come up with anything to add to the discussion. What was I going to say though, really? It seemed like my accomplishments paled in comparison to what they were doing. Hey, I just finished a big project at work, and I'm still paying off my car. One dinner in particular, perhaps a year ago, comes to mind. As was customary, the topic of conversation shifted to Sarah's most recent travel plans as we were all seated around the table. "Oh, we're going to Europe for a few weeks," she revealed nonchalantly as she sipped her drink. "It's just so nice that Mom and Dad are able to help out with the expenses." Chris added his voice as well, discussing some of the wedding expenses that were paid for. In a casual tone, he remarked, "I honestly don't know what we would have done without that $200,000. Emily immediately burst out laughing, saying, "Thanks to our parents covering everything," expressing her relief that the tuition hikes had no effect on her. They seemed to be hammering their words into my head as I sat there attempting to concentrate on my plate. It wasn't just the money, I had to work for my advancement and take out loans to make ends meet, whereas they had their futures handed to them. They pretended not to have to worry about it, but every dollar seemed like a fight. The worst thing? I wasn't even included in the discourse, yet nobody appeared to notice. My face became hot, my hands clenched beneath the table, and I could feel my irritation mounting until I was unable to contain it any longer. I whispered something to me. "Must be nice." There was silence in the room, everyone was watching me. It was Sarah who spoke first. With a confused and annoyed expression on her face, as if she couldn't even begin to comprehend why I was unhappy, she questioned, "What's that supposed to mean, Michael?" I inhaled deeply while attempting to remain composed, but everything spilled out quickly. It means that not all of us get everything handed to us on a silver platter. Some of us actually have to work for what we need. They clearly didn't understand. As if it were no great issue, Chris simply shrugged and relaxed back in his chair. He smiled smugly and added, "Michael, you're always acting like you're the victim. Didn't Mom and Dad help you get those tools for work?" That struck a chord. Even though they gave me $7,000, it seems insignificant in comparison to what they have done for Chris and Sarah. I said, "Yeah, they helped, firmly. But 7,000 compared to hundreds of thousands? It's not the same, and you know it." As usual, Mom tried to defuse the situation. "Michael, we thought that's what you needed. We've always tried to give you what was fair." "Fair?" I asked, my voice bursting with resentment. "You think this is fair? You've given them everything. You've practically paved their roads for them, and I've had to build mine brick by brick." From there, the discussion took a turn for the worst. Everyone made an effort to justify themselves and claim that I was exaggerating. Dad shook his head and remarked, "You're exaggerating this?" "No," I replied. "You gave me the minimum. That's the part that hurts the most. You didn't care about what I wanted, only what you thought was enough to keep me quiet. It was more than I could handle." Without saying another word, I got up and walked out of the room, my chair making a loud scraping sound against the floor. I didn't turn around, but their voices followed me as I left the room. I was tired of constantly getting the leftovers and being the one who was forgotten. That night, I was furious and stormed out of the house. I don't believe I've ever been that angry. My heart was thumping in my chest, like if it were trying to escape. It seemed like the world was closing in on me with each step I took down the driveway. I had no idea where I was heading. I simply knew that I had to leave, far away. It was late, maybe around 10 o'clock, and there was silence on the streets. You know that spooky silence where everything seems a little too motionless? Yes, that was it. As I went, the only sound was the sound of my sneakers hitting the pavement. I wasn't in the mood for distractions, so I didn't have my phone out or my headphones on. I had to think. I kept thinking about the supper while I was walking, Chris's arrogant expression, Sarah's patronizing inquiries. They all seemed to be living in a bubble of privilege and were unaware of how oppressive it was for me. I was merely an outsider with a window into their lovely little world. My frustration grew as I gave it more attention. Why didn't I say more was a question I kept asking myself. Why didn't I actually give it to them? However, I later came to the realization that my words would have had no impact. Talking to a brick wall was like that. I had my version of what happened, and they had theirs, and the two were never going to coincide. I eventually made my way to the park where I used to spend my childhood. The residence was only a 15-minute walk away. Some trees kind of obscured an old bench and a spot next to the playground. It was one of those locations you travel to when you simply need to escape from everything, and I needed that. I took a seat and simply gazed up at the sky while leaning back against the chilly wood. On this particular clear night, all the stars were visible. It would normally be soothing to me, but that night it didn't help. I couldn't stop thinking about how unfair everything was, how I had spent my entire life striving to fit in, only to be given scraps while my siblings had it all. I briefly considered not glancing at my phone as it buzzed in my pocket. However, my curiosity overcame me, and I took it out. It was Emily's text, of course. "Michael, where did you go? You need to come back. Let's talk about this." "Speak?" "Yes, exactly. I have previously heard that. Nothing in my family was ever resolved by talking. The routine was always the same. Mom and Dad would explain why things were the way they were, and I would be told to accept it. However, I wasn't in the mood for any more justifications this time. I stuffed my phone back in my pocket without answering the text. I began to mentally review everything as I sat there, including the years I had been ignored and the times I had felt like an afterthought. Even if I wasn't a flawless child, I still didn't deserve to be treated any less than the other kids. It wasn't truly about the money. It was about being appreciated and seen. And for whatever reason, my parents had come to the conclusion that Sarah or Chris's wants and aspirations were more important than mine. I'm not sure how long I sat there, but eventually the cold began to set in. The nights were growing colder, and fall was rapidly approaching. The wind sliced through the thin material of my jacket as I drew it firmly about myself. I considered going home, but the notion of going back inside that house and confronting them after everything that had transpired was too much to take. I became aware of something while I sat there. I was sick of battling for meager attention and support. I wasn't just angry anymore. I decided then and there that I was done. I'm done trying to fit into their ideal little family photo and to get them to notice me. With a renewed sense of resolve, I rose from the bench. It was time to put myself first and create the life I desired without continuously looking for their approval. I didn't require their sympathy or handouts. I was determined to make it myself and demonstrate to them what they had been missing for years. I experienced an odd mixture of relief and melancholy as I made my way back to my flat. I was relieved that I was at last taking charge of my own life, but I was also sad about the familial relationship I was giving up. I felt like I was headed in the right direction for the first time in a long time, even though I knew it wouldn't be simple. I took a seat at my desk and began making plans as soon as I arrived home. I was determined to put my all into my profession and create something for myself. Maybe they'll realize what they've been missing out on for years when I've succeeded and reached my goals on my own terms. But I had a job to do for the time being. It was time to begin crafting my own narrative, one in which I was more than a supporting character in the accomplishments of others. I was prepared for the moment that would be my chance to shine. First update. Since my last post, which was around 2 years ago, a lot has transpired. I made a choice that would change the trajectory of my life following that terrible family supper. I had had enough of being the afterthought and the forgotten son. It was time to go out on my own, free from my family's support or meddling. I approached my task with a level of resolve I had never experienced before. I began by working longer hours and taking on more tasks and responsibilities at work. After my employer took note, I received a promotion offer a few months later. Though not very significant, it was a positive start. This company idea had always been in the back of my thoughts. I now concluded that the moment had come to turn it into a reality. I planned, saved, and researched whenever I had free time. I reduced all of my expenses, including eating out, buying new clothes, and taking trips. I invested every extra dollar in my company fund. I finally got enough money to launch my firm after a year or so of saving and planning. It was a digital startup that specialized in creating small business software. The initial months were harsh. I was working nonstop, attempting to balance software development, customer meetings, and all of the administrative duties involved in managing a company. After being impressed by my work, a local business owner referred me to his network, which was my first big break. All of a sudden, I had more clients than I could manage alone. My first employee was hired, followed by my second. I had a tiny staff working for me before I realized it. My confidence increased along with the business. I felt like I was actually succeeding on my own terms for the first time in my life. I was no longer living in the shadow of others. I was making something significant, something wholly original. My family was aware of the change, of course. Initially, Emily's texts were just inquisitive inquiries about my well-being. My answers were succinct and ambiguous. Then followed the family get-together invitations, which I graciously turned down because of my professional obligations. The first person to really push was Sarah. One day, she unexpectedly arrived at my workplace. Sarah's eyes widened as she took in the workplace when I walked out to the reception area. Although it wasn't very ostentatious, it was contemporary, polished, and obviously effective. Her voice was a mixture of astonishment and something else I couldn't quite pinpoint when she said, "Michael, this is amazing. Why didn't you inform us of everything?" I shrugged and spoke in a neutral tone. "I have been quite busy." She scowled, obviously dissatisfied with my response. "We have been concerned for you. You no longer attend family dinners. We hardly ever hear back from you." Their parents believe they have done something incorrectly. I experienced a little twinge of guilt. But then I recalled all those years of suffering and feeling inferior as they navigated life with the help of our parents. I said, "I'm doing fine. Actually, it's better than fine." For a while, I simply had to concentrate on my own life. My business kept expanding as the months passed. We expanded our workforce and relocated to a larger office. I even appeared as a rising entrepreneur to watch in a local business publication. My phone was inundated with text from my family on the day the piece was published. They were all excited, proud, and celebratory. Alongside those emotions, though, I could feel their perplexity and perhaps even a hint of hurt that they were reading about my achievement in a magazine instead of directly from me. None of the mails received a response from me. A part of me felt grim satisfaction, and another part felt guilt. They were the ones on the outside looking in for a change. It was them who were pondering, inquiring, and attempting to comprehend. The next to get in touch was Chris. One evening, as I was leaving the office, he called. When I lifted him up, he said, "Hey, little brother? No talk for a long time. I read that article about your business. It was really amazing." I answered in a neutral tone, "Thanks. A lot of work has gone into this, but it's paying off." "Look," he went on, "we miss you, dude, even though I know the family has been acting strangely recently. This weekend, how about we have supper together? We may congratulate your success and catch up." I was tempted for a second. A part of me missed my family in spite of everything. I thought back to all those dinners, though, where I felt invisible. All the occasions when Chris or Sarah's accomplishments were highlighted above mine. I said, "Thank you for the invitation, but I have a lot of work to do right now, perhaps at a later day." Even though my accomplishment was fulfilling, I realized as I was driving home that evening that it hadn't made things better with my family. It had, if anything, made it wider. I was pleased with my accomplishments and pleased that I had completed everything by myself. However, my success came with a loneliness I hadn't expected. I wasn't prepared to close that gap though. Not quite yet. I had been the family's afterthought for far too long. I wasn't sure whether there was still space for them in my own story, which I was now writing. I would deal with whatever came next on my own terms. Second update, about a year and a half has passed since my last post, and my life has changed drastically once more. The expansion of my tech company has surpassed my wildest expectations. We now serve mid-sized businesses throughout the state as part of our extended service offering. We were listed as one of the top 50 startups to watch in a major business magazine last month. My phone was inundated with congratulations the day the piece was published, but one in particular, a voicemail from my mother, stood out. "Michael, honey, it's Mom. We saw the article. Your father and I are so proud of you. We'd love to talk if you have a moment. Please call us back when you can." I was taken aback. My parents hadn't spoken to me directly in more than a year. I wasn't sure how to react after so much time, so I didn't call back right away. A week later, my assistant told me I had guests when I was working late. I was shocked to see my folks standing in the lobby. They appeared older and more worn out than I had recalled. When they saw me, their eyes glowed with a mixture of pride and apprehension, but Mom's hair had more gray and Dad's shoulders appeared to slump. Mom said hesitantly, "Michael, we hope you don't mind us dropping by like this. We simply had to see you." I escorted them to my office, where they gazed at the contemporary furnishings and the accolades that lined the bookcases. They hadn't seen the struggling child like that in a long time. "This is really amazing, son," Dad remarked in a rough, emotional voice. "You've accomplished a lot for yourself." The uneasy silence was broken by Mom. "We must apologize to you, Michael. After much consideration, we've come to the conclusion that we treated you differently from your siblings. We sincerely apologize for not seeing it at the time, but we do now." A lump formed in my throat. I'd been waiting so long to hear this, but I wasn't sure how to react when the time came. Dad bent over. "We're proud of you, son, not only for your accomplishments but also for taking on this challenge alone. We were oblivious to your abilities until you demonstrated them to us." After that we spoke for a while. I discovered that I was talking more about the setbacks and victories over the previous few years. It was odd, but in a way, it felt perfect, like the puzzle pieces were finally coming together. After a moment of hesitation, Mom continued, "There's something else we wanted to talk to you about, Michael." As our conversation came to an end. "We need your assistance." Immediately, I felt my guard go up. "What sort of assistance?" They looked at one another, and then Dad said something. "The family business is at issue. Son, we're in trouble. We haven't kept up with the changes in the market. Failure to upgrade promptly will put us in danger of becoming bankrupt." Mom hurriedly added, "Especially after everything, we hate to ask. However, we reasoned that given your technological and business acumen." I sat back, feeling a lot of different emotions. Even though their apology appeared genuine and I wanted to get back in touch, I couldn't help but feel suspicious. Was this the true cause of their unexpected arrival? At last, I answered, "I need some time to think about this. There's a lot to take in." With a hopeful yet nervous expression, they nodded. Mom gave me a hard hug as I walked them out. She whispered, "Michael, you are loved. Regardless of what you decide." I spent a lot of time sitting in my office after they went, gazing out at the city lights. I had put forth a lot of effort to prove myself and get here. My family was now requesting my assistance, right after I had achieved the height of my prosperity. I didn't miss the irony. There was a part of me that wanted to be the greater person and offer them assistance. However, a part of me that recalled years of feeling inferior wanted to say no, to let them know that I didn't need them any more than they had needed me. I understood that there was more at stake here than simply business. It had to do with family, forgiveness, and the kind of person I wanted to be. Whatever I chose would influence not just how I interacted with my family but also the type of man I was growing into. With my parents' number displayed on the screen, I took out my phone and gazed at it. Is it better to call or not? Is it better to assist or not? The later the night became and the quieter the city below, the more I thought about the choice. Reddit, what would you do? Do I still owe my family anything after all of this, or is it time to put this chapter behind me for good? Third update. My parents requested assistance with their failing business a month ago. I hired a private investigator since something wasn't quite right. I was shocked by what I found. Instead of failing, the family firm was doing quite well. They had recently landed a big deal. However, it wasn't all. Financial deception spanning years was discovered by the investigator. Inflating the costs of Sarah and Chris's education and marriages, my parents had been transferring funds into personal accounts. $200,000 for Sarah's wedding. A large portion of money was transferred to a covert investing account in her name. Emily's tuition was actually paid into a high-yield savings account, and Chris had a trust fund. In addition to favoring my siblings, they had deliberately worked to secure their financial prosperity at my expense. I was enraged. The deliberate choice to keep me out had been made during all those years of feeling inferior and struggling while my siblings navigated life. I summoned my legal staff to a meeting. There were certain dubious tax strategies that could lead to issues if they were discovered, even if the majority of my parents' acts fell into legal limbo. I invited my folks to come to work with me. They came with a hopeful expression, perhaps expecting me to assist them. When they saw my reaction, their faces sank. I said icily, "Sit down. We must speak." I presented all that I had found. I saw their expressions change from shock to guilt to dread with every admission. "How did you accomplish this?" With a trembling voice, I asked. "You were purposefully keeping me down while uplifting everyone else, even though I felt inadequate all these years." "Why?" My mom broke down in tears. According to my father's explanation, they viewed me as the self-sufficient powerful one. He spoke in a hollow voice. I interrupted him, saying, "I don't want excuses. I want you to be aware of what is about to happen." I informed them that I had contacted the IRS anonymously about their dubious tax procedures. Additionally, I had provided Sarah, Chris, and Emily with proof of how they had profited from our parents' dishonesty. I remarked, "Your ideal family image is about to fall apart. And you can't buy your way out of it this time. Please, Michael," my father pleaded. "We can make this right. We'll put things right." I chuckled without humor. "That's the issue, Dad. You continue to believe that money can solve any problem. However, you cannot purchase my forgiveness. The years I spent feeling unworthy are irreplaceable." I got to my feet. "Go now. Never again do I want to hear from any of you. I no longer consider myself to have a family." My mother glanced back, crying, as they walked away. "You are loved, Michael, we always have." I gave her a direct look. "I don't want to be involved if this is how you define love." I stayed in my office for a while after they left, feeling a mixture of relief, betrayal, and rage. I was relieved that I could finally stop questioning my value and that I knew the truth. Sarah, Chris, and Emily sent me texts in the days that followed. Some were irate, some beseeching. None of them received a response from me. With fresh energy, I pushed myself back into my work. My business kept expanding, and I discovered fulfillment in coaching aspiring business owners from comparable backgrounds. 6 months have passed since that altercation. The pain of what I've lost, or rather, what I never truly had, still aches on some days. Mostly, though, I feel liberated. Free from the burden of attempting to convince others of my value when they never intended to. I am aware that some people may believe that I was too severe and that the family deserves forgiveness. However, I've discovered that leaving poisonous relationships, even ones that include your own blood, can occasionally be the healthiest course of action. To everyone who has ever felt like the odd one out, know that your value is not based on how your family views you. You possess the ability to craft your own narrative, generate your own achievements, and locate those who will appreciate you for who you are. For my part, I'm concentrating on creating my chosen family, which consists of friends and coworkers that encourage me, share in my accomplishments without feeling envious, and support me during difficult times without keeping score. Regardless of our backgrounds or experiences, let's celebrate fresh starts, chosen families, and creating our own narratives. We have the power to influence the future, and I'm eager to see where that takes us. Am I the asshole for jumping out of the way when my niece and nephew tried to push me into a pool, causing them to fall in instead? Original post. OOP reluctantly goes to a family BBQ. OOP's nephews and nieces push people into the pool and eventually try with OP. OP sees this coming from a mile away and steps out of the way, and the kids fall in, along with the phone they were holding to record. OP's sisters got pissed for almost letting their kids drown, and because the phone is now at the bottom of the pool. They insist that OP should have let the kids push him into the pool and OP needs to apologize. OP is voted NTA update post. OP spends the first part of this post explaining that the kids were fully capable of swimming and that the party ended on a sour note. Turns out drunk BL who faceplanted had to get stitches. Sisters and Bills texted mean shit to OP and he and his wife blocked them. Mom and Dad were pissed at the text and made the sisters apologize and end this nonsense. OP thought things were over but instead gets a text from one Bill saying OP needs to reimburse them for the phone. OP refuses, sends a screenshot to his parents and says he's going no contact with sisters. In what OP says is an out-of-character move, Dad calls sisters and rips them a new one. Grandkids are no longer welcome at their place indefinitely, which messes up the free babysitting Mom provides. They are banned from the vacation house and he tells them that OOP owns that vacation house, not the parents. Sisters freak out. Sisters and husbands come over unannounced to apologize a few days later. OP and wife are out at dinner so they leave a note. OP decides no contact is the best option for now. Update 2. Well, it's been an interesting last few days. I thought the shit had hit the fan before, but it was more of a fart compared to what's happened this week. TLDR. OP provides financial context here. OP's sisters think parents are dripping in money when in fact they are not. Turns out oldest sis and her fam have been living beyond their means and are in need of a loan, which parents can't give. She's also been renting out the vacation house once a month or so for the last 3 years and has been keeping the money. Another sister was aware of this and possibly has rented it out previously as well. OP's parents feel awful and let OP know. They figure that the sisters will try to convince OOP to let them rent out the house. Turns out they're right. The sisters show up and practically force their way inside OOP's house to convince them to let them use the place. They also say, quoting from OOP here, "I've been a shitty brother and that I needed to step up and plan on paying for their kids' college tuition since that's what family does." OOP calls them out on their bullshit and there's a huge blow up and the sisters leave. OP is exhausted, frustrated and drained. Update 3. TLDR. OP's parents decide they're done managing the vacation home, keeping track of who was using it, routine maintenance, etc., because sisters keep pressuring them to use it. OP feels bad for his parents because he wanted them to be able to use it regularly and now dynamics have changed, but he gets it. OP locks the gate with a heavy-duty chain and lock, resets all keypads and creates new codes, gets security cameras and has signs put up saying the area is monitored by video. OP gets a call from both husbands trying to convince him to let them use the house, like they always have. The older BL tried to go up with some friends but couldn't get in. He threatens on the phone to basically break in and acts completely entitled. Other BL sounds like he is being made to call by sister. OOP obviously says no and considers selling the home. He also has no plans to initiate contact with sisters and they are not talking with him. Update 4. TLDR. OP hires a guy to look after the vacation home. Parents are continually pressured by sisters to tell OP to open up the vacation home for Thanksgiving. They refused and instead said they would organize a gathering at an Airbnb if everyone split the cost, otherwise they would host at their place. This causes an argument because the middle sister is for Airbnb, and the oldest sister doesn't have any money. So Thanksgiving will be at my parents' house but OOP and wife won't be there. Parents ask OOP to not sell for now as they would like to still use the place, but won't until sisters have come to terms with the new normal. Wife and OOP have stayed no contact with sisters, but they have called and left messages. OOP says F you Google Voice, demanding OOP meets with them and work out how everyone can use the family vacation home. OOP doesn't respond. OOP also does not plan to turn the vacation home into an Airbnb. This part is directly from the post. My parents tell me that the oldest sister and her husband are getting out of the leases for their SUV and big-ass truck and are selling their jet skis and some other shit they've never needed. That's going to be really hard on her. She's quite the braggart and won't like being seen in something older, smaller, cheaper. My Bill's identity is very much wrapped up with his truck as well. He even has a small tattoo of the truck company's logo. Which frankly is one of the many reasons why he and I never hung out. Update 5. Things have gone to hell. I really, truly did not think anything like this would happen. Short version, my brothers-in-law broke into my vacation home and were arrested. They've been charged with breaking and entering, destruction of property and communicating threats, all Class 1 misdemeanors. I've refused to drop the charges. I might do so if I'm fully paid for the damage they caused. They were still in jail as of Saturday evening. I assume they're out by now. Editor's note. My TLDR of the next part of the post: Bills went to the vacation home and cut through the chain, damaged the gate. They messed up the front door trying to get in, ended up getting through another door and then broke into the barn. David, the guy OOP hired to manage the home, called the cops. Cops didn't buy Bill's excuses that they were allowed and OOP was unreachable at the moment due to spending the day with his wife's family and leaving the phones in the car. Bills were booked at the sheriff's office. Sisters freaked out but OOP had them blocked. Older sister couldn't afford bail because their cards were maxed out, so middle sis would have to pay for everything. OP and his wife checked their phones late on Friday on their way home and found that mom and dad, the sheriff's department and David had all called. OP called David when he got home and found out the extent of the damage. He ended Friday calling the sheriff's department and telling them it wasn't a misunderstanding and that Bills did not have his permission to be there. From OOP's post, I waited until Saturday afternoon to call my folks. They were both pretty rattled about it all, my mom in particular. My sisters had browbeat them into telling me I should tell the cops it was all a mistake and that I wanted the charges dropped. I refused flat out, told them there was no way I'd do that until I spoke with an attorney and also not until I was paid in full for whatever it will cost to fix everything 100%. My mom was crying hard by the time we got off the phone, which of course made me feel like shit. My dad suggested it was time for a complete start over but also said he thought they needed to pay for the damage. I haven't gone up to the property yet. There's nothing I can do and I'll probably go nuts when I see the damage in person. The photos are bad enough. I'm hoping for tomorrow or Wednesday, but my job isn't one I can just wander off from for non-emergencies. I've left messages with 2 attorney friends asking them to recommend the right lawyers to go after my sisters and BILs. I don't know what I can do exactly, but I'm hoping to get restraining orders. I have all the texts they've sent me, that might help. I'm strongly considering suing them for the money they made renting the place. I don't care about the cash, but it will help make them as miserable as possible. The gloves are definitely off at this point. A couple of side notes. Bills had no idea I'd hired someone to keep an eye on things or that there are cameras there now. My parents knew but hadn't told them because they knew it would just give my sisters a reason to drama up. There are signs on the property stating it's being monitored with cameras and no trespassing signs though. My wife has completely had it at this point. I don't blame her. She's been more than patient about it all, but she reached her limit and was not shy about letting me know. She told me it's up to me how I deal with this, but that she thought they all needed to be taught a hard lesson. Older BL likely won't face any repercussions at his job over this, but middle BL has a security clearance, so he might. I'm hoping that will be motivation for middle Bill to pay for the damages himself immediately. David, the caretaker, has an interesting background. I knew he was friends with some of the deputies, figured it was because they were all locals. I was wrong. He was a cop in a big city for years, was shot on duty and afterwards decided to quit and move to where his parents had retired. He has some PTSD over it all. His dog is a certified service animal and is usually with him. I know law enforcement people tend to hang together. I guess that's how they became his friend group. I don't want to see or speak with these a-holes for the rest of my life. I know this is in direct conflict with my overwhelming urge to make their lives as miserable as possible. Update 6. Didn't think I'd be doing another post this soon, but a lot has happened over the past 2 days. Short version, I think the corner has been turned on this crap. Thursday afternoon I got a courier-delivered envelope at my office. In it was a signed letter from both my brothers-in-law and a cashier's check for $5,000. In the letter they made what I have to say was a really sincere apology. Among other things, they acknowledged breaking in, acknowledged it was wrong, said the $5,000 was to pay for the damage and that they'd pay more if it cost more than that. Also said they'd stay away from the vacation home unless my wife and I specifically invited them. They also asked that I do what I could to get the charges dropped as soon as possible because they both could lose their jobs and that they'd agree to a restraining order or whatever else it took for that to happen. There was more as well, all conciliatory, but that's the gist of it. To say this was a shock is an understatement. It was, obviously, a total 180 from their past behavior. I'd already made an appointment with an attorney to see about suing my BILs over the damage and to try to get a restraining order. I called him and told him what I'd just received, and he agreed to meet with me at the end of the day instead of next week. Told me not to deposit the check. We met for about 2 hours. He ended up recommending the wife and I do a settlement and mutual release agreement with all 4 of them, sisters and BILs. He said if we went after them via a lawsuit that we'd almost certainly win, but that it could take 2 years or more, there would be sizable upfront legal fees and that we might never see any money. He also said we could keep the $5,000 free and clear even if we didn't let them off the hook. He's drawing up the agreement. It won't be ready until Monday. The agreement will include what's essentially the civil equivalent of a restraining order. I'd already asked my property manager to work up a bid to get the damage repaired. I called him after the meeting and asked that he get me as close to an estimate as possible ASAP. Got that Friday. He thinks it will take around $4,000 to fix everything. Most of that is for the front door. On Friday, my attorney contacted each of the BILs, told them what we were proposing and advised them to get their own lawyers. They both agreed to it. The middle BIL told him they could afford to either pay for the damages or pay for a lawyer, but not both, and they figured a lawyer wouldn't make any difference given that they really had no defense for what they did. His biggest concern was if the charges could be dropped. From what I can tell, they're willing to do anything, sign anything to make this all go away. My attorney also called the DA's office on Friday to discuss dismissing the charges, got the name of the prosecutor and left them a message, but has not spoken to them yet. He thinks they'll dismiss the charges because the bills are paying up and they have no priors, but then again he's not a criminal lawyer. Also said I should be prepared to drive up there Monday or Tuesday and tell the prosecutor in person that I want everything dismissed. He's also advised me to continue to be no contact with sisters and BILs, especially for the next 6 months, and that it will be really important to follow the terms of the agreement when it comes to future interactions with them. I'm guessing that the BILs' change of heart is due to them having figured out what's at stake for them, what it's going to cost them in legal fees and fines and so on. There's also the highly unlikely possibility that they could go to jail for up to 120 days, and as I've mentioned, one of them has a security clearance for his job that could be at risk. So this is their Hail Mary pass to keep their normal lives. This isn't a perfect resolution to the situation, but at least it will get me past the legal and financial parts of the shit show that I've been in for the past few months. I doubt I'll ever have a civil relationship with any of them ever again, and that's fine. What I want most at this point is to close this off, get on with my life, and never speak to any of them again. I'm exhausted from this. Wife feels pretty much the same way. Kind of a side issue, but getting the written apology was, weirdly, a huge moment for me. I wasn't expecting that ever, but apparently it matters to me quite a bit. The money doesn't feel particularly important at this moment. I'll damn sure take it though. Also, I'm pretty certain my middle sister and her husband came up with the money. The cashier's check is from the credit union of the company he works for. Once things are signed, I plan to make one more update, probably just an edit to this post. I'm sorry for being so pedantic. Writing these posts has helped clear my head, and the feedback has really helped. I truly appreciate everyone's comments, insights, and support. And I really hope none of you ever have to go through this kind of nonsense. Update 7. Tuesday morning I met with my attorney and went over the agreement. Changed a couple of minor things and he sent it to my sisters and brothers-in-law. It included a requirement that they pay my attorney's fee, about $3,000. They weren't happy about that and tried to negotiate it away, but he told them they either accept it as is or there would be no deal at all, and we'd proceed with suing them for the money they got from renting out the place, wear and tear from renting it, repair costs from their break-in, emotional distress, lost income from having to deal with this, attorney fees, and whatever else we could. He also told them I would push hard with the DA's office to prosecute every charge. Short version, they came in and signed. I wasn't there. I'm told it was a pretty tense environment, that the middle BIL appeared to have taken charge, and that at one point he told both of my sisters to shut the hell up or he was walking away from the whole thing, making his own deal with us and the rest of them could all go to hell. They provided another cashier's check for $2,500, claiming that's all they had. It's close enough that we're going to accept it as the final payment. Attorney also told me that everyone was very cold and curt towards one another, but that they all managed to keep it together long enough to sign and left without making too big of a scene. I drove up to the vacation house early yesterday to check out the damage and meet with the DA's office. Seeing the damage made my blood boil. It was so senseless. I was so pissed that I was ready to eat the cost of repairs and do everything I could to ruin their lives. Tried walking it off, failed utterly. Ended up calling a good friend who was kind enough to stay on the phone for over an hour letting me spew and vent. He eventually got me back to focusing on the bigger picture of putting this behind me and getting on with my life. Honestly, I'm still not sure that's what I want to do, but I settled down enough to get some food in me and I felt better. After lunch I went to the DA's office, hadn't made an appointment and had to wait a while but got to meet with the assistant DA who's got the case. Short version is that since I don't want to prosecute and the BILs have already paid for the damages, that they are willing to drop all the charges except trespassing, which in this case will be a Class 2 misdemeanor. The BILs will have to plead guilty and pay whatever fine the judge sets. I'm also told that if they fight the trespassing charge or ever so much as fart in public up there, that it would go very poorly for them. It helped that the BILs didn't resist arrest. If they had, none of the charges would have been dropped. I also went by the sheriff's office to thank them for getting there so quickly and everything. Wanted to thank the deputies personally but only spoke to the dispatch person. And I tried to meet up with David, the property manager, but couldn't get hold of him. A couple of notes. The agreement includes a no contact clause. Basically, if any of them show up where my wife or I are, or the other way around, whoever got there last has to leave immediately. No contact except through attorneys or other mutually agreed upon third parties. They get to keep whatever they made from renting the vacation house, my big give, unless I have tax consequences which they will be responsible for. And we release each other from all other liabilities up through the present. There's more to it than that, but those are the high points. Wife and I will sign the agreement later today. After that I can't talk about most of this, but I can talk around it. I think this is my final update regarding all this nonsense, but I'll respond to comments if I can. As I've said before, posting about all of this and reading folks' thoughts and responses has been really helpful and has probably been key in my being able to handle this in a relatively healthy way. So thank you all again. Update 8, thought it would be worth an update for anyone who's interested. Unsurprisingly, my oldest sister and brother-in-law have filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy. While I don't care about what happens to them financially or otherwise, they've also managed to drag my parents into their mess, which I'm not happy about. At the start of the year, my BIL's oversized customized Pride and Joy truck was repossessed. Pretty embarrassing for him, I'm sure. Happened at work. This was their breaking point. Without the truck they have to share a Kia my parents loaned them and they can barely fit in it with their 3 kids. Financially they're effed. They owe at least $125,000, probably more, on high-interest credit cards. They have zero equity in their house, and have a couple of personal loans that I'm pretty certain they got under false pretenses. They have loans on their jet skis, ATVs and trailers. They also owe a chunk of money from defaulting on the truck lease. They hadn't made any payments on their credit cards or loans in months and were behind on their house payments as well. They got out of the lease on my sister's massive SUV late last year. They were upside down on it as well, so had to come up with cash to do so. They also had to pay an attorney, the fine and court costs for my BIL's trespassing charge at the vacation house. And they owe my middle sister and her husband money for bail and their portion of the damages to the place. As I've mentioned before, my folks have never been financial wizards, but they have at least been generally responsible. They're retired, their home is paid off, and they live off of Social Security and pensions. Altogether they get more than they spend. Minimal savings, just an emergency fund. Turns out my folks emptied out that fund, cashed out their small IRA, $20,000, and gave it to my sister. That let her catch up on the house payment and cover the negative equity on her car lease. But now literally every bit of savings my parents possessed is gone. Plus my parents have been paying for their groceries for several months and continue to pay the insurance on the car they loaned my sister. According to my dad, my sisters worked my mom for weeks to get her to fork over the money. They'd worked on both my folks at the same time for a while, but my dad flat out refused every time. Eventually mom caved. She was worried that my sister would have to move to a hovel in some backwater town and that the kids would be barefoot and eating dirt. Dad's not happy about it, and to say there's some tension between them right now is an understatement. But they'll be fine. I was pretty disappointed when my parents told me all this, but I wasn't surprised. It sucks that they emptied out their savings to help, but I kind of get it. The way the bankruptcy laws are in our state, by getting caught up on the home loan, my sister should be able to keep the house. I tried hard not to say how I felt about this, and my sisters mostly succeeded. Really, I'm way more pissed about this than I should be. The worst part for me is that my sister and BIL could now contact me and my wife without any real fear of repercussions. The only penalty the no contact agreement has is that if they violate it, we can go after them for the money they made from renting out the vacation house and related damages. Since they've filed for bankruptcy, that's now not an impediment for them. I'm hoping they'll leave us alone, but who knows. Folks also told me that my middle sister and her husband have hit a rough spot, and that he's not currently living with her and the kids. Just a guess, but I imagine he's had it with the whole family dynamic that caused this nonsense. Not directly related, but on a brighter note, I've spent 2 weekends at the mountain house since the start of the year, once with my wife and once alone. Both times there was a lot of snow. It was incredibly beautiful and relaxing. Very therapeutic. The place also has good internet service now, thanks Starlink, which is nice. Plus knowing that I can count on David, the property manager, to keep the place in shape, ready for us to visit and to help if we get snowed in, eliminates most of the stress in owning it. My folks have used it a few times as well and get along great with David. Relevant comments. Could you get a restraining order? If they start up again, I do indeed plan to get a restraining order. In fact, my wife made it clear to me she expects a very hard approach to any BS from them going forward, which I agree with, of course. I had the security cameras at our house upgraded at the start of the year just in case they come by. I also kept all their previous texts and provided screenshots to my attorney for safekeeping. If they cause any trouble at the vacation house, they're toast. The sheriff's department and DA's office have the full story and are sympathetic to our situation. $125,000 on credit cards? $125,000 is my estimate based on my sister telling my parents they were racking up at least $3,000 per month just in credit card interest. She thought it might be more. Their credit was already crap before the bankruptcy, so I'm guessing they might be paying as high as 28% interest. If so, they'd owe about $125,000. If they're paying a lower interest rate, the principal would be higher. But yeah, it's an absurd amount, and that $3,000 doesn't include all the other interest they're paying. And of course there's the principal that just sits there. On the other hand, I'm told they had a great time going to Disney World for a week, so there's that. Middle Bill. Younger Bill seems to be more decent than I've given him credit for in the past. I'll admit to a bit of myopia. For years I've seen the four of them and their kids as just one mass of inconvenient people I have nothing in common with but can't avoid. But he seems to have hit his limit and made some changes. Hope it works out for him and that he pulls my sister in the right direction. How sisters got so entitled. My sisters, and I, weren't raised to be like they are. When I was young, they weren't any more self-entitled than any other teenagers. We all worked crappy teenage jobs, didn't get spoiled. It was really a very standard suburban upbringing. We weren't super close, but we weren't enemies. Somewhere along the line after going off to college, they changed for the worse. I guess it could be worse. They could have become drug addicts or militant vegan volcano worshippers or whatever. But they sure became people I don't want to be around. And yes, the pool incident was the spark for the meltdown, but the fuel had been accumulating for years. It would have come out at some point that she was renting the house out on the sly and things would have gone to hell then, just like they did now. Update 9. There's been a fair number of requests for an update, and considering it's coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the pool incident, I thought I'd post one. My folks worked through Mom giving my oldest sister her IRA and their emergency fund. Altogether, Mom gave her $45,000. According to Dad, once Mom realized how much she'd been manipulated, she got as mad and upset as he'd ever seen her. I think she had a moment of clarity. She and Dad ended up calling my sisters on a 3-way call, and according to Dad, it went south pretty quickly. Sisters were gaslighting them, Mom lost her cool and ended up ripping into them hard. There were lots of tears and eventually both sisters hung up. Mom really just wanted both sisters to acknowledge that they'd put her and Dad in a risky financial situation. Typical blow-up, I guess, but not the kind of thing that happens in our family. The next morning my dad called my older sister and told her he'd be picking up the car they'd loaned her. She tried to argue, but he told her it wasn't up for discussion. He got a neighbor friend to take him to her house as soon as he hung up and drove it home without talking to her. Sister called and went off on him, said lots of nasty stuff, which of course hurt him. But at least they have the car back. Dad also told me something that left me dumbfounded. For the last 17 years they were giving both sisters a grocery allowance that was up to $500 per month. What the effing F? I'd thought I had a pretty good handle on where their money was going, but clearly I was wrong. This started back when I was going to graduate school and living at home. My sisters asked for the money because they thought it wasn't fair that I was living at home rent-free, and then it just never ended. In any case, my parents cut them off. Unsurprisingly, my sisters weren't happy about it. Who the hell gets an allowance from their parents when they're in their 40s? Because of all this, my folks and sisters quit talking for a while. Don't know if they've resolved everything, but they appear to be on speaking terms again, though my folks aren't having them or the kids over. I'm in don't ask mode, it's their business. My folks are using the vacation home fairly regularly. Currently they're there for a 2-week stay and will probably make it 3. Unfortunately, my wife and I haven't spent any time there lately, other than me having made a couple of day trips to check on it and drop off some supplies. The property manager I hired, David, is still taking good care of the place. Side note, Middle sister told my mom that the oldest sister had been making over $6,000 per month renting the house out and that it had been going on for nearly 3 years. Pretty certain she didn't declare the income, so that's like grossing $8,000 to $9,000 per month. I will forever find that galling. Oldest sister and BIL still have their house. My attorney checked up on their bankruptcy case. The court converted it from Chapter 7 to Chapter 13, which I believe means they have to pay back a lot more of their debts. Middle sister and her husband are still separated. I don't know if my middle Bill has had any issues with his security clearance because of breaking into the house. I do know he's still with the same big defense company. At my parents' request, I've been working on putting their house into a trust. They want me to manage their affairs as they get older and keep the house safe from my sisters. I'm working with an attorney, but it's not done yet. Folks have asked me to be the trustee and have also given me full power of attorney. The best part about the last few months is that my sisters, Bills, have left us alone and have stayed away from the vacation home. Wife and I are really happy to be back to our normal lives. Hope everyone else's lives are going great. Update 10, December 14, 2024. Some folks have asked for an update. Here you go. In August, my attorney let me know he'd received a letter for me from my middle brother-in-law. This was the first contact from any of my sisters or their husbands since they'd been arrested. It was a long letter, had a sincere apology, and a lot of information he thought I should know. Biggest thing was that he and my sister are divorced, not separated. He moved out and filed for divorce right after we made the settlement agreement. He and my middle sister kept it quiet until it was done. Their house sold in June and she's moved to an apartment. He told me that his being arrested last year, along with my other BIL, for breaking into the vacation house could have cost him his job and killed his career, and that it was a huge moment of clarity. He said that the dynamic between the four of them, my sisters, him and my oldest sister's husband, had become totally toxic, that they are all borderline alcoholics or worse, and that he had to get away from that environment. He no longer speaks to my oldest sister or her husband. He also asked if he, my dad, and I could meet and have an extended conversation, as there were things he needed to talk about in person. Frankly, I was unenthused, but my wife thought it was worth doing. I asked my dad if he was interested. He was, so I relayed a response to now ex-Bill through my attorney and we met over lunch. We talked for over 2 hours. It was pretty exhausting. Ex-Bill looked better than I'd seen him in, well, forever. He's quit drinking, is in therapy, has lost a lot of weight and looked fit. He was apologetic about all the BS he'd been involved in and apologized to my dad for hiding the divorce. Told us therapy is really helping him. Asked me if the $5,000 he'd sent covered all the damage to the vacation house. I told him it had, and thanked me for talking to the county prosecutor. Said he is strongly considering transferring to a new project that would have him living overseas for the next few years, that he really needed to reset his life, but he was trying to balance his mental health against not being part of his kids' lives every day. Ex-Bill also hit us with what for me was quite the WTF. Apparently my sisters have hated me since before I was born, but have always hidden it from the rest of us. They liked things better when there were just the two of them. He said when they drank, which was whenever they were together, my sisters would often bitch about me being the favorite child, how my folks gave me more opportunities than they had, how my doing well was a result of that, and that I didn't deserve my success. None of that made any sense to me or my dad. All three of us went to the same public schools, had dumb part-time jobs, etc. My folks paid for 100% of their college, not mine. I got a full scholarship. I was pretty shocked by this, but my dad was literally speechless. Dad eventually said he had no clue they felt that way as kids and that he and Mom had never favored any of us. He's still having a hard time with this. Personally, I'm embarrassed that I was clueless about it all my life. But it does explain a lot. Ex-Bill warned us that my sisters and remaining BIL intended to put on a full court press to alienate my folks from my wife and me. They also planned to keep the grandkids away from my folks to pressure them. He said that they're still 1000% convinced that my folks are sitting on a ton of money. They want some of it ASAP and are sure I'd stop my folks from giving them anything. That got a laugh out of my dad because he and Mom simply don't have any real money. They do have their house, of course. Ex-Bill also told us that he and my middle sister had rented out the vacation house a total of 6 times over the years. He offered to pay me what they'd made. I declined and told him it was in the past. He also told us my older sister Bill had never declared the income from renting out the vacation house. He did. He didn't want to get in trouble with the IRS. Both my dad and I spoke with ex-Bill separately for a few minutes. Don't know what they talked about. I thanked him for his apology and for making things right financially. Also wished him well and told him I'd be willing to talk with him again down the road. Don't think that's going to happen. I probably could have been more forgiving, but I think he appreciated me not bullshitting him by acting like all this crap hasn't affected my wife and me. There was more, but it's less important, and this is too long as it is. After XBL left, I asked my dad if he, Mom and I could sit down and talk about all this. I didn't mean immediately, but that's how he took it. He called Mom and let her know I was coming over, so I rolled with it. She was pretty hurt by my sister's plans to ruin her and Dad's relationship with me and my wife and to use the grandkids as pawns. She cried a lot and wanted to confront them immediately. Dad got her to put a pin in that for a while. Mom was also dumbfounded about me supposedly being the favorite child. She feels like they were actually more strict with me because I had a hard curfew and my sisters didn't. To be honest, I barely remember that. It was 25 years ago. A couple of side notes. Middle sister eventually told our folks she's divorced. She's currently living off child support and her half of the home sale. Supposedly she's trying to find a job. My parents have gone low contact with both sisters. No idea how permanent that is, but Mom seems like she's completely had it with them for the foreseeable future. They're spending a lot of time at the vacation house. We're up there over a month at one point. Bill found my Reddit posts. He's not terribly happy about them but feels they're more or less accurate, though obviously he found them slanted towards my point of view. He disagreed that he's boring but said to be fair that he finds me boring as well. I can live with that. Our worlds don't have much overlap except my sister. We got the trust set up for my parents' house. I'm the trustee. All this has been emotionally draining for me. I decided it would be a good idea for me to see a therapist again. I've seen one in the past, mainly for stress-related issues. I've been doing so for a while and it's definitely helpful. Therapist tells me my decision to stay no contact with my siblings is healthy for now but also wants me to keep an open mind down the road. Update 1 year later, am I the asshole for not attending my dad's wedding to his affair partner? Original post. When I was 17, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. 2 years later she passed away. During these 2 years my dad was not around much. He was always working and going on business trips. My aunt and grandma took care of Mom. About 5 months after my mother's passing, my dad introduced me to his new girlfriend. I was pissed. I yelled at him how quickly he moved on from Mom when they decided to tell me they had been in a relationship for 3 years. My dad had been cheating on my mom while she was dying. His business trips were to meet his affair partner. I was so angry I packed my stuff and left his house. I haven't spoken to him since that day. Currently I am 25. The only family I speak to is an aunt who helped me when I left my dad's house. A few days ago my aunt called me, asked me how I was and then asked me if I heard from Dad. I said why would I hear from him again? My aunt said Dad is getting married to his affair partner and by going to his wedding it would help us mend our relationship. I said, why would I do that? He is dead to me? There was a silence on the phone for a bit before my dad replied asking if that was what I felt about him. I immediately cut the call when I heard his voice. I realized he was with my aunt when she made the call to me. I texted my aunt telling her I asked her not to tell Dad anything about me and she agreed back then. She texted me back saying I was an asshole for saying what I said and my dad is crushed hearing that and that I should move on by now. I did not want to argue with someone who helped me so I blocked her. Over the next 2 days, I got a wedding invitation to my mailbox. The only person in the family who knew my address was my aunt. And she gave my number to various members of the family. I am being bombarded with calls and texts from Dad, uncles, cousins, aunts saying I should give him a chance and come to the wedding. Some called me names for saying what I said. I got a text from the affair partner saying my dad is thinking of postponing the wedding and I should just talk to him. For context, the affair partner was a friend of my mom and knew she had cancer. I said it's not my fault if he postpones the wedding. I don't want to have a relationship with Dad or her. They are trying to force it. It got quiet after that, but being told by so many people from my dad's side I am an asshole did leave me conflicted, but I am sticking to my guns. So, AITA? Relevant comments. Your aunt violated your trust and the rest of your family needs to be cut off too. Yeah, I have blocked 39 numbers. But what my aunt did really made me sad. I genuinely thought she cared for me. It feels like there is a catch here for them to want to reach out now and not years ago. Actually, I thought about this too. And I think you may be right because I got some texts like, it's a son's duty to take care of his father and, your future kids would want their grandfather in their life. On safety. Thank you. I am in the process of changing my number and updating contacts. As for where I live, it's a pretty secure apartment. You can only come in after me or someone buzzes you in, then you have to write down your name with security and the elevator works with a key fob only. I am hoping that I don't have to move but keeping my options open if it escalates. Top comment. Child of Obama, NTA. Your dad cheated on your mom while she was dying, and now the whole family is upset. You've calmly expressed how you feel about it by A. Cutting your dad out, and B. Not attending the wedding. Your aunt also violated your trust by giving your contact information out without your consent. I'd say cut the whole family out at this point. OP is voted NTA mini update in comments. I sent a text to all 39 numbers who called or texted me detailing what dad did and blocked all of them. I don't care for their responses. Update post. Hello. First, I want to thank all who commented on the first post and all who messaged me. It really helped me stick with my decision to not go to the wedding. I wanted to update earlier, but it's been pretty hectic with work. So, after the many texts and calls from multiple family members, I sent a text to all the numbers detailing what dad did and why I chose to be no contact with him. I then blocked all the numbers. I have changed my number but kept the old number in a separate phone to collect evidence if they start to harass me from random numbers. But luckily nothing happened and I thought that was that. A week or so after that, my aunt's fiancé came to my apartment. He knew what time I got off work and was waiting for me in the parking lot. I was apprehensive, but he assured me he only wanted to talk. And according to him, the text I sent has caused a shitstorm in that family. He told me that some of the cousins who did not know what happened in the past started to question dad and affair partner, and they started to get defensive and deny it, but someone revealed that it was true. This has caused a massive argument within the family, with some cousins pulling out of the wedding. Dad wanted to postpone the wedding so he could talk to me, but the affair partner threatened to leave him if he did that. The news of what dad and affair partner did also reached some of their friends who were at one point friends of my mom as well. Some of them have also pulled out of the wedding, and this caused the affair partner to have a breakdown and started banning anyone who brings it up, family members included, from the wedding. According to my aunt's fiancé, she is blaming this all on me, and says I did this intentionally. I laughed at that. The wedding is still somehow happening. I asked him about my aunt and how all this started, and he said all he knows is that there was a conversation of how bad the family would look if I wasn't at the wedding, and that my aunt offered to call me. He said that he disagreed, but she did it anyway. He said that he is only here because he felt I needed to know what happened. I thanked him but said I will be going completely no contact with her and by extension him as well. He agreed, wished me well and left. I am not going to lie and say I am completely okay. I miss my aunt. I miss my mom. But I know what I did was the right thing. I am currently staying with my girlfriend and she has been cheering me up by coming up with absurd ways to ruin the wedding. As a lot of you said, I should try therapy, and I am going to take that advice. Some of the comments have made me realize that I have bottled up a lot of grief and anger. I am super nervous about it, but I also feel it'll do me good. So, once again, thank you for all your comments and advice. Ciao. Comment on girlfriend's ideas. The very first idea she came up with was, let's go to the landfill and catch some rays, then let's release them at the wedding. It got progressively worse from that. Obviously this is just for fun, and I have no intention of going anywhere near that wedding. But reading some of the ideas here is giving me a good laugh. Update 2. Hello, I don't know if I'm doing this right, but I logged in today and saw a lot of messages asking me what happened and how I'm doing. I wasn't sure if I should write this or if anyone would even see it because I don't know if I am doing it, but here it goes. For everyone asking what happened at the wedding, I don't know much. All I know is that they got married. No one from that family contacted me since then, and I didn't go asking around either. I am at peace with it. As for me, things are different now. First, I want to thank everyone who reached out and asked how I've been holding up. Your kindness means more than I can put into words. I'm getting better, slowly, though the journey hasn't been easy. A lot has changed since my last update. I'm single now and have moved to a new city. My ex, who I'll call Mia, and I separated about 4 months after my last post. We celebrated 2 years together in March and talked about our future. But I was a mess. Therapy started well, but I quickly realized just how many unresolved issues I had bottled up from losing my mom. I was struggling emotionally, crying at random, worrying for some fucked up thoughts that I might somehow turn into my dad, and spiraling with fears I couldn't control. Mia had dreams of marriage and kids, and I knew I wasn't in the right place to give her the future she deserved. It would have been very selfish of me to ask her to stay until I got better. We had a long, honest talk, lots of tears, and ultimately decided to part ways. It wasn't easy, but it was the best decision for both of us. Mia and I still cared for each other deeply, and she, along with my friends, checked on me every day after the breakup. I wasn't left to face things alone, and for that, I'm so grateful. In July, I was offered the chance to move to the head office of my company in another city. After discussing it with my therapist, I decided it would be a good opportunity to change my surroundings and start fresh. In September, I made the move. My best friend used 25 days of his 30-day holiday to help me pack, move, and settle in. I can't overstate how much that meant to me. I have incredible friends. Since then, I've been taking things one day at a time. The new office has been amazing. Everyone was so welcoming, which was a big relief since I'd been anxious about starting over somewhere new. I now attend online therapy sessions twice a week and grief counseling in person here. It's been helping a lot. I'm in a much better headspace than I was before, though I still don't feel ready to date again. For now, I'm focusing on my career and on continuing to heal. Once again, thank you to everyone who has supported me, whether through messages or just by caring enough to check in. It means the world. I had an emergency C-section, and my husband wanted a divorce because he didn't witness the birth. Throw away because I want to fix this and I'm paranoid about more people in our lives finding out. It's all so fucked up already, I don't want more stress. My husband, 29 million, and I, 30 billion, have been married for 5 years. I gave birth to our first child in September, a girl. My husband was present for most of my labor, but things went very pear-shaped and I had to have an emergency C-section. The doctors told him to leave the room and wait outside. In short, he did not see our daughter be born. A week ago he informed me that he wants to divorce and start over on his dreams of having a family. He insists that he cannot bond with our daughter and says it's because he didn't see her being born. He said a lot about how it's always been a dream of his to have a small, close-knit family, and now he can't have that with me because of the C-section and his not being in the room. His dad suggested therapy but husband refused, saying he knew it wouldn't work. I've made sure he knows I'm open to the idea if he changes his mind, but he's been very insistent that he knows this can't be fixed. Part of me knows I'm basically asking for a magic spell here, but does anyone have any ideas how, if this can be fixed? I'll try to answer any questions anyone may have. Sorry if the flare isn't correct, I just guessed. Update 1. I wanted to update and thank everyone who sympathized with me and tried to help. There isn't much new, but some things have happened. I can't link my first post here according to the rules, but these 2 posts are the only ones this throwaway has, so it should be easy to find. TLDR. I, 30NB, gave birth in September. Things went badly. I needed a C-section. Husband, 29M, did not see daughter be born. Husband insists that he can't bond with daughter and wants a divorce so he can start over on his dream of having a close-knit family. Several people suggested asking him to come with me to a therapist so I can get help understanding why he's leaving. He agreed and our appointment was yesterday. It didn't go badly, but it didn't go well either. He was very upfront with the therapist. He didn't try to mince words or refuse to answer questions. He told the man, paraphrasing, they got to bond the entire pregnancy. That baby is made of their body. I can't compare to that. My work started at birth and I wasn't there, so I don't feel like I ever got hired, if that makes sense. Yeah, he compared it to not having an employment contract. I get the metaphor, I guess, but I'm not sure how it translates to him not being able to bond. Several people made transphobic comments and several other people asked if maybe my lack of gender was an issue. I assume no, because husband had known that I'm non-binary since before we started dating, but I did bring it up while we were with the therapist. Husband insists that no, it has nothing to do with anything. He didn't care about what I am but how I did. The therapist was very focused on trying to help me understand, and I appreciate that. No complaints with him. I'm still completely in the dark though, and husband has started talking about choosing a lawyer. He says he wants a clean break, before daughter gets too attached. TLDR 2. Situation is still fucked. I'm leaning towards letting him just go and focusing on me and daughter. Update 2. This is probably going to be long and it isn't a happy update. My other posts can be seen in my post history, but the short of it is that I, 30NB, gave birth to my daughter in September. My STBX husband, 29M, did not see her birth. Things went very badly and I needed emergency intervention. He was not in the room for the C-section. About a month and a half ago he informed me that he cannot bond with her because he did not see her be born, and he wants to divorce so he can start over on his dreams of a close-knit family. We have filed. I have taken daughter and moved back in with my parents, who aren't very happy about the divorce but are thrilled to have the chance to nanny daughter, their words, not mine. Life was in stasis for about a week after my last post until Mufael asked us to come over for dinner. He informed me that STBX had asked for his help paying for a lawyer. He had agreed with the requirement that we all sit down and have one last talk about the situation. He opened by saying that he thinks that getting this over with would be best for me and daughter. STBX looked a little hurt at this, so he's willing to help, but he wanted to take one last shot at fixing it. The one last shot ended up being several hours of talking. FIL bluntly demanded that STBX explain his reasoning. STBX repeated the can't bond thing. FIL asked why. The employment contract analogy was brought up again. After much back, forth, what do you mean by this? Why that? FIL just said, I'm not buying this. What's the real reason, STBX? STBX insisted till the end that what he'd been saying all along was his reasoning. He did not see daughter be born, so he can't bond. He tried, he insisted. The connection isn't there. He was supposed to connect when daughter was born, there was supposed to be a spark of connection between them, but that spark can only happen right at birth, I guess? In his mind he can't get it now. Phil asked if STBX thought daughter wasn't his. STBX insists he has no doubts he is daughter's biological father. FIL asked if STBX was seeing someone else? Was there a woman or another pregnancy somewhere? STBX did not react well to this. He threw his phone down on the table and said that we were free to search it. He's not a scumbag. After that the conversation turned to post-divorce life. STBX offered up that he'd been running the numbers and would volunteer $50 a month alimony and $50 a month in child support. He doesn't have to do either, mind, because we're divorcing and he wants to cut all ties with the kid, but he wants to be fair. $50 in alimony? Whatever, I have a job and a roof over our heads. I don't need it. $50 in child support? That is a lot less whatever. But I'm refusing to stress about it. The court will handle CS amounts. I'm making myself not be angry and let them deal with it. I admit I tuned out most of the rest of FIL's attempt to talk sense into his son after that comment. I think that was when the coffin finally nailed itself shut. I started packing when we got home and went to my parents' house the next day. I'm no longer talking to STBX, his lawyer talks to mine. We haven't spoken in almost 3 weeks. I don't think I need to tell you that he hasn't shown any concern for daughter, but here I am anyway. The day after I got there my sister kidnapped me to her place. We got very drunk, daughter was with parents, not us. Talked about everything and I screamed a lot. I got most of it out of my system. After that we had more drinks and watched terrible horror movies. I woke up the next day with the headache from hell but otherwise feeling better than I had in a long time. My job can't transfer me, just my luck, but I've been promised a glowing reference and I'm cashing out what little paid leave I have left to add to my savings. Phil asked after the failed conversation if I would be cutting him off. I assured him that he might not see us as much because of how far away my parents live and not knowing where I'll end up, but he's not getting rid of me or daughter that easily. He was very happy to hear that. So that's where I am. Papers have been filed, daughter and I have moved out of the house, I'm doing my best to ignore STBX's existence. Thank you all again for listening to me cry and complain over the past couple months. Update 3. I promised an update once things were over, and at this point they're mostly over, so here I am. My story can be seen in my post history, but the short of it is that my 31NB ex-husband, 29M, did not see my daughter's birth and decided that because he wasn't there he couldn't bond, so he and I are divorcing and he's going to start over. Daughter turned 1 this month. She landed on not as her first word. I suspect this is because Phil brought home a foster to adopt dog a few months back whose previous owners called her Nod or Nodder. Daughter loves the heck out of this dog, you guys. Phil sends me pictures of her every day to show to my daughter. Ex-husband and I are just waiting on some final paperwork for the divorce to be complete. He has not contested anything. He did look the judge in the face and repeat the whole didn't see birth, can't bond thing. His lawyer did try and defend that claim. He presented studies that he claimed said things about damages to bonds when fathers weren't present and actively involved for everything but ex-husbands was. He was there and active and involved my entire pregnancy, and was present for my entire labor until things went wrong. It wasn't a case of, ooh, hey you knocked someone up 5 years ago, now bond with this kid. Daughter was definitely less than an hour old when he held her for the first time, probably less than half an hour. And I had proof for this claim too, among other things I had pictures of the two of us at multiple prenatal appointments. FEL was also willing to file a statement talking about how ex and he were involved in my pregnancy. Needless to say, the judge was not impressed with my ex's lawyer's arguments. He tried to push my ex for therapy, made comments about how ex would regret this later. Ex stood stubborn with his I need to start over line. He has visitation per the paperwork. Care to guess if he's used it? He does also have to pay child support. If you've read my post history you might remember that he offered me a gigantic $50 a month. That's all he's been paying despite the judge ordering a lot more, so that's a fight I'm going to have to steel myself for. I'm surprised he started scanting out before the divorce was even final, but he did tell me in a fill that he's not a scumbag, so in his mind he's probably just keeping true to his word or something. He's shown no interest in daughter. No other children, pregnancies or potential partners have popped up either. As best film can tell, X is single and not showing any interest in dating yet. I don't know how I feel, really. It would make more sense if he was cheating. It would be easier to have something solid to point to, go, fuck you into a tornado for making my life fall apart, and then try to move on. But all lived evidence points to him honestly thinking he has to do this. I'm in therapy. I've found a place about the middle of my parents and FIL, and I'm still doing freelance work. I would rate myself okay. Daughter is happy, healthy and kicking. She will be fine. I plan to never speak to X again once this paperwork is done. I just have to wait to be able to totally start over myself. Am I the asshole for wanting to report my doctor, who is my sister's best friend, for telling her I'm on Vivance, a HIPAA violation? My oldest sister's lifelong best friend has been my doctor for a couple of years. Initially my doctor, Dr. A, was a colleague of hers from the same clinic, but after my doctor, Dr. A, was away on maternity leave, I temporarily switched to my sister's friend, Dr. B, as my primary physician, and it's been that way since the pandemic began and I never switched back. I have ADHD and get prescription meds for it and have been for a few years now, something I haven't shared with any of my family members for fear of backlash since I come from a long line of type A overachievers who don't believe in ADHD and write it off as laziness. A few days ago, my siblings and I were hanging out at my sister's house watching the Matthew Perry, Diane Sawyer episode where he shares his history with substance abuse, and I made a comment about how skinny he looked during one of the seasons of Friends. My sister then, out of nowhere, says to me, "Well, it started with prescription drugs, so I hope you don't get hooked." I was instantly gripped with a feeling of absolute horror. My other siblings were confused and looking at her for further clarification, but she didn't say anything more. I spent the whole night just frozen and with a deep pit in my stomach. Later, when I found some time alone with her, I had to pry the information out of her. She had just gotten back from a girls' ski trip, and when they were extremely drunk, her friend, my Dr. B, slipped up and mentioned that she saw me recently for an increase in my dosage and basically revealed to my sister that I have been taking prescription Vivance for a few years now. I'm so livid, feel utter betrayal and have a strong urge to report her for breaking HIPAA regulations. My sister won't stop texting and calling me about it, literally all day long, begging me not to ruin her friend's life forever after years of hard work. She's obviously worried about losing her friend, but she couldn't care less about how disrespected I feel and how my privacy was violated. And more than anything, I worry that my sister will share it with my parents and my family will never look at me or my achievements the same. ETA. A little more info. I've known Dr. B my entire life, as long as my sister has. She was my sister's friend since they were in first grade, and they've remained close, and we've hung out with our families on multiple occasions over the years. We've even gone on trips together, including my sister's bachelorette. I always looked up to her and found her cool growing up. She and my sister both have kids around the same age and they're close as well. She currently brings in the bigger chunk of the income in their family and they rely on it, and my sister keeps reminding me that I'm also ruining two innocent children's lives in the process, which is the only thing I feel guilty about. I adore those kids and they don't deserve that. But I also cannot get over how betrayed I feel. I always keep a safe distance between personal and professional relationships and would have never picked her to be my doctor had the circumstances not unfolded the way it did. She was the next best doctor and was the obvious choice because I wasn't really looking to switch to a new clinic during the pandemic. Relevant comments. OOP, on her sister's personality, Dr. B doesn't know what my sister told me yet. So far it's just been conversations between my sister and I. She's making it seem like they were so sloppy drunk that it was a slip-up and a complete one-time total accident, but I don't understand why that would even come up at all and don't believe that. My older sister flaunting sensitive info about my sibs and I is a tale as old as time. When we were kids, she would hold on to a secret she found out about one of us till the perfect moment and would thrive on dropping the bombshell to our parents during a road trip or in the interval of a great movie and ruin the entire thing. It was her thing, and I fear she hasn't fully gotten over the habit as an adult. My older sister considers herself our parent too and has always narked or used stuff as leverage against us. I used to fear her growing up and would hide my journals at my friend's house because she would snoop. Definitely lacks empathy. Update 1. Thank you for all the advice and support on my original post. After reading the feedback, I reached out to a close lawyer friend for advice as well. And he, like most of you, agreed that I should report it and to do it without informing anyone else. He said it was better for me to do it sooner to have it on record. They prefer any complaint to be filed within 180 days of when you knew that the act or omission complained of occurred. 2 days after that I reported Dr. B to OCR for violating HIPAA and Patient Safety Act and breaching my fundamental right to health information privacy. I didn't tell my sister or anyone else, but a few days later, I saw my entire family when I went home for the holidays. I hadn't heard anything back yet on my complaint, so I wasn't sure if Dr. B was aware yet, let alone tell my sister that I had reported her, so I didn't say a word. Turns out that wasn't my biggest issue at that moment though. My sister had already told my parents that I was on an extremely high dose of controlled substances. I knew my parents wouldn't take this news well, but they were far more upset about it than I could have imagined. My dad doesn't believe in ADHD, and thinks it's merely an excuse for those that allow themselves to get easily distracted, especially since the age of social media. He even remarked that he noticed I was quite slow with my responses since dropping out of my chess club. Really absurd and offensive comments. I can't even remember a lot of it because I was frozen. I just sat there, nauseous and livid, with tears in my eyes, just listening to the three of them, my parents and sister, take turns going off at me. My mom wanted me to stop all medications immediately, that I'm better than this and smarter than this, and even threatened to tell your professors that you're on drugs if you leave us with no choice. But when she said that, it hit me. I had a choice. I could choose. I could choose to never have to deal with this again and to not let them treat me this way anymore. So I did. I chose to say nothing and allowed them to interpret my silence as agreeing and submitting to their ways, as I have done so many times before. And then I went to my room, chose to book a flight and pack up most of my stuff. My books would need buses of their own to be transported anywhere. The next morning, I chose to call an Uber a few hours before my flight, while they were still asleep, and flew back to my university. I chose me. In January, I found out that Dr. B had prior complaints from patients against her, and my report had opened an investigation that is currently ongoing. She's been placed on temporary leave till the case is resolved. I can't share more details on that for now, but I will come back and update once it's done. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. I also have ADHD and I studied neuroscience, partly because I wanted to understand. I also come from a family that thinks like OPs, and I got the same BS from them all my life. We now finally come to be able to make ADHD visible in MRI scans and predict the presence of symptoms with an accuracy of up to 80%. We can make visible the ways ADHD brains are different from normal brains, not in their structure but in the way they make use of it. We can see where our bodies use more oxygen and neurotransmitters, and ADHD brains are visibly different from normal ones in a way that is congruent with the symptoms. We can even tell apart the inattentive type and the hyperactive type with an accuracy of up to 75%. People who say ADHD patients are lazy and their symptoms are their own choices and character flaw are as ignorant and backwards as someone still believing the flu is caused by bad air or cancer is God's will. If this family is so smart, they are doing a really good job at remaining ignorant. With all the evidence out there, they have to really choose not to read and educate themselves and become advocates for their child and sibling, but instead actively avoid the newest scientific evidence that their opinion is stupid and they have been shitty people all along. It took me 30 years to make the step you made. Kudos on being so brave and mature while still being in college. I'm still trying to come to terms with self-doubt, imposter syndrome and depression. If you can afford it, do some therapy. Growing up in such a negative environment takes its toll even after you cut the ties. I'm proud of you. The hurdles to get to where you are today were huge and you did it all by yourself. Never forget that. Here's an article about it. This is just a small study in China, but they are happening everywhere and they all come to the same conclusion. Oop. I have tears in my eyes. I really needed to read every single thing you typed out here. I'm so tempted to send this to my family, but I don't want to interact with them right now, so I won't. I love science just as much as they do, and studying physics brings me so much purpose. I just know I need some help in staying ahead of my course and completing my assignments, and I'm finally okay with that. In the short time that I've been away from my family, I've felt so much more freedom in accepting who I am. That I am still smart and capable, and that I will still become a scientist, even if I do it my own way, and I am okay with the fact that my family doesn't approve of my choices. If they can't be bothered to listen to me, let alone attempt to learn anything about my diagnosis and try to be there for me, they aren't worth worrying over. I have spent far too much of my life doing that already. I have no more time or energy to give to that anymore. I'm channeling all of that towards me, achieving my goals and healing my trauma. Thank you for listening and for sharing. I'm so grateful for you. OP. On her family. It's their whole image. We come from a long line of scientists and many of my family members have a PhD. And as far as I know, none of them have been officially diagnosed like I have, or maybe they struggled with it secretly, but their work ethic and achievements are everything to them and they would never reveal anything that would show otherwise. It's the way we were raised and I didn't know anything else for most of my life. Anyone who couldn't pay attention was distracted in their eyes, nothing more. Commenter 2. Sad thing is, I get the feeling that you could show all of this to OP's family and it wouldn't make a bit of difference. OP. It wouldn't. You are so right. I considered it for a second, but you are so very right. I was seriously so blind for years. All I wanted was to be good enough for them. Therapy is now making me realize so many things. It's so bittersweet. My heart aches. The worst part about going no contact with your sister, missing out on getting to hang out with your niece and nephew. March 30th, 2023, 3 weeks later. I don't know how many of you have actually gone NC with your family, especially to the extent that I have currently, but I'd love to hear any advice you might have. At this point, I don't have any form of communication with my parents and older sister and haven't since December. The most awful part about this whole thing is my inability to reach out to my young niece and nephew who I'm so close to. Every year I receive a Valentine's Day card from them, and this year I got none. It's incredibly lonely, and I don't wish this on anyone. I'm always wondering why they think I haven't called them. As much as I'm growing and healing from this, I'm also dealing with a lot of trauma, and it's rough. Relevant comments. OP. On learning about herself. I think it's so hard for me right now because for years so much of what mattered to me was getting approval and being good enough for my family. Especially since they're all overachievers and place a lot of value in academic excellence. And to feel no support from them at a time when I could really use it. I've never felt so alone and just out of place in this world. But I'm also learning a lot about myself and how codependent I was and relied too much on their opinions to ever even form strong ones of my own. So the bright side to this is figuring myself out. Oh, on losing her sister, I've been having an extremely hard time the last few days dealing with this. I am looking forward to when I can say my life is much healthier and happier without my sister. I know it will come, but right now, I'm just experiencing so much sadness as a younger sister who looked up to my sister so freaking much. All I wanted was to be good enough for her to be proud of me or think I was worthy of her time and attention. But I'm not, and coming to terms with that is brutal. Commenter 1. It really is like grieving the death of a loved one. Therapy helps, having support helps, and being kind to yourself helps. For me, a big issue was second-guessing myself. Maybe I'm blowing things out of proportion. I should just apologize again. Those thoughts were hard to get past. OP. I'm having those exact thoughts. I am currently in therapy and it is not easy. It seems like so much of the affection I thought I felt from my family wasn't real at all, and most of it in my head. Thank you for sharing with me. It might not seem like much, but it really does help to know there are others out there dealing with similar situations. It is so hard. Commenter 2. Could I make a suggestion to you? Create an email address for them. Something like I love my nephew at Gmail and I love niece at Gmail. Then email them every time you would have sent a card or reached out. Send emails that say, Happy Valentine's Day, I miss you guys. Hey, I saw pictures, or heard through the grapevine that you did this. That's awesome and I'm proud of you. This reminded me of you today and I wanted to share. I would have the first email to the account be a "This is what happened between your mom and dad and I and why I'm no contact. It was never about you guys and I'm always here when you're ready to contact me." Then when they're old enough to decide for themselves, maybe 18, maybe earlier or later depending on circumstances at that point, you can give them the password OAP. This is a wonderful idea and I might actually do this. It feels like a good way to express my feelings without bottling them all up. Thank you. OAP, on trusting herself. It feels so awful to know they don't really have your best interests at heart, and it's a very raw kind of pain. But you are right, I do feel more confident in my decision as each day goes by and know I did the right thing. Update 2. Thank you to every single person that has commented, reached out via DM or shared any advice with me. My ADHD and current anxiety has me extremely overwhelmed, so please excuse me for not being able to respond to each of you individually. I get quite a few questions every day about any update with the case. I'm not sure how so many of you are still finding this post, but I really appreciate everything you've said to me to help me get through this. I'm sorry I can't answer any questions right now. Please know that once I have enough to share or any real information, I most certainly will, but for now, there isn't much. The only thing I can share is that I am currently working with an attorney well versed in HIPAA violations who is handling the matter on my behalf. We have received a notice regarding the outcome of the investigation from the OCR, which I am not allowed to share yet. I'm not sure if we, along with the other patients who faced breach of privacy from the same doctor, will be suing, because that's usually the most unlikely outcome since it almost always falls on the employers rather than the doctors. I've been told we might proceed with a civil claim. There's a lot of bureaucracy involved and it seems quite complicated, so I don't have a timeline on what to expect yet. I'm just grateful to have a lawyer that knows what they're doing. Thank you for your support. It's been the most hardest and lonely period of my life, and your kind words helped me get through it. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. Hey, it sounds to be a good update so far. How did the situation with your family turn out? Did they contact you? I hope you're emotionally okay and have the time to heal. OP. My mom has tried to contact me a few times, but I haven't answered. My dad and sister haven't. I have checked in with my other 2 siblings a few times, when I've just been so incredibly lonely that it feels like the world is ending. I am not emotionally okay at all. I'm going to therapy and getting help for it, but processing trauma is a very hard and painful process. I can't explain to you in words how it feels to have a stranger make you realize your family has never loved you at all. As much as my older sister was a bully to me, in some twisted way, she was my idol growing up, and all I wanted was to make her proud of me. I never felt worthy of her time or attention back then, and never did even as an adult with many achievements. And to know she would pick her friends in a heartbeat over me, it really was such a painful stab in my back. I know things will get better. I feel it in waves. I am finding confidence in little things every day. I just found out that my family cut me out of their insurance plan, and I no longer have access to health coverage, including my prescription meds for ADHD or therapy, both of which I really need right now. What are my options? May 24, 2023, 1 month later. I'm a full-time student under the age of 26, and my health insurance so far has been included in my family's plan under dependent coverage extension. A few months ago I went NC with my family after they found out I was on prescription Vyvanse for my ADHD, something they absolutely do not believe in, and refuse to support me. 2 weeks ago, I found out that they have taken me off their health plan and have pretty much left me to fend for myself. I haven't been able to get my meds this month, and it has been awful. Since I study full-time, my only means of income is a part-time TA job on campus, which is currently on hold since the semester has ended, and some tutoring I do during my very limited free time. I'm struggling and on the verge of a mental breakdown and could use any advice I can get. What options do I have to get some health coverage or any assistance whatsoever? Sorry if this has been hard to read, my eyes fill up with tears anytime I try to type this out. Relevant comments. Commenter 1. What QLE did they use to drop you? Is one not required on the marketplace plans to experience a life event to drop an enrollee mid-year? OP. Dependent no longer eligible because of full independence, is what I was told. I'm currently involved in an ongoing lawsuit due to a HIPAA breach by my doctor. It's caused a major rift between my family and me, since the doctor is the best friend of my older sister. Hence the NC, and probably why they did this. Commenter 2. You most likely will be able to get Medicaid. Do you have a local Department of Social Services you can go to? OP. Would I be able to qualify for Medicaid independently even though my family has a high disposable income? I'm financially independent but have been on their plan my whole life until last month. I've reached out to a few that were recommended by my university, but since my official address is out of state, where my parents are, I'm having to get those sorted first. Commenter 3. Make sure they're not claiming you as a dependent on their taxes still, but generally yes. It's not based on your family's income since you're not a minor and don't live with them. OP. I hadn't even considered this. I need to look up how to check if they're claiming me as a dependent. Thank you for pointing this out. My final update. Farewell and thank you for your support. I hope you read this. June 6, 2023, 2 weeks later. Hello everyone, I want to express my deepest gratitude to all of you who have reached out, offered advice or a safe space for me to be heard, and provided unwavering support during my time here. Your kindness has been a guiding light in what has been the absolute darkest time of my life. I was so incredibly lonely after making the difficult decision to go no contact with my family. However, amidst this awfully painful period that I wouldn't wish on anyone, I discovered a newfound sense of belonging provided by all of you compassionate strangers on Reddit. To those of you that were proud of me, I cried a long cry for every single time I read those words, and I will carry them with me till the very end. Science is my purpose here. I will rise again and hopefully help change this world for the better someday. As I embark on a healing journey, I've decided to take a step back from here. As someone navigating ADHD, I can sometimes become overwhelmed with feedback. Therapy has taught me the importance of focusing on my mental well-being, and given the financial challenges I'm facing and ongoing legal issues, I will be working 2 jobs to make ends meet and afford the healthcare and stability I need while I'm off from school. I cannot express how much your support has meant to me, but at this time, I must prioritize my responsibilities and take care of myself. Till I'm back, I want to leave you with a quote that resonates deeply within me. Pass on the kindness of strangers, for they have the power to mend the broken and inspire the lost. From the bottom of my heart, I thank you for becoming the family I needed when I felt most alone. May your lives be overflowing with happiness, love, and success. Take care. My family treats me like a doormat. Now, they are planning a cruise without me and assuming I'd stay behind to babysit their kids. They expected me to watch the kids while they had a good time, even though I, 25F, was not invited to the family cruise. Reddit, hello? Usually, I just read posts and marvel how families can be so cruel to one another. As it happens, I just received a story from my own family that is worth sharing. I need some perspective since for the past week, this has been weighing heavily on my chest. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm a 25-year-old single software developer for a big tech business in Seattle, and it seems like I've been made the family doormat. I got what most people would call a dream job 3 years ago after graduating from college. I've been advancing my career consistently, my work is rewarding and difficult, and my team respects me. However, in my family, I'm simply the one who can be counted on, the person who others turn to when they need assistance, particularly with childcare. Please understand that I adore my nieces and nephews. I've always been available for last-minute babysitting, crises, or any time someone needs a helping hand. Perhaps I erred by being overly approachable and eager to assist. The backstory is as follows. After 40 years of teaching, my 65-year-old Aunt Jean is retiring. She is essentially the matriarch of our family, keeping everyone in touch. She keeps track of all the birthdays, plans every holiday meal, and even sends care packages to the younger cousins when they attend college. She is what keeps us all together. She was the one who gave me care packages filled with my favorite snacks and handwritten encouraging letters during finals week when I was in college. She even assisted me in getting ready for my very first job interview. Her retirement is obviously a huge event, and I was thrilled to join in the celebration, or was, until I learned that I would not be participating. Everything began last week. I had just completed a particularly difficult project at work that involved coordinating a crucial system update and staying late to fulfill deadlines. Despite my fatigue, I continued to have dinner with my family once a week. Since I moved into my own apartment, these dinners have become a ritual, and even when I'm really busy with work, I hardly ever miss one. I brought Mom's favorite bottle of wine when I got to my folks' place. It was an ordinary evening, my sister Rachel, 32 degrees Fahrenheit, looking through her phone, my dad half watching a sporting event on TV, and my mom, 55 degrees Fahrenheit, worrying about what to make. Her 2-year-old was on the floor playing with blocks and would sometimes call out to everyone who passed. We were discussing a variety of topics, including Rachel's toddler's most recent developmental milestone, my most recent professional endeavor, and the customary family rumors. I then asked jokingly if anyone had any suggestions for Aunt Jean's retirement present. I had been considering getting her a unique present, perhaps organizing a collective present with the family. At that moment, Rachel said, "Oh, we're giving her a group gift on the cruise," without even raising her head from her phone. I stopped in the middle of my sentence. What kind of cruise? At first, I believed I had misheard her. I would be aware of any scheduled family vacation, wouldn't I? I mean, I attend every birthday party, holiday celebration, and family get-together. I chuckled uneasily and inquired about her topic. She raised her head, obviously perplexed that I was perplexed. We've been organizing the cruise for months, you know. As if I were somehow to blame for not knowing about something that no one had thought to tell me, Rachel added, all the adults in the family are going. I asked my mother for an explanation. When she realizes she's done something wrong but doesn't want to acknowledge it, she gives me this uneasy smile. She clarified. It's a cruise to celebrate your aunt's retirement, with a few days spent in Hawaii. I had the impression that I was in a strange prank show at the time. I was in the dark about this elaborate excursion, while everyone else was aware of it. Suddenly, the space felt too warm and cramped. My heart was pounding as I struggled to comprehend what was going on. My mother gave me a tense little laugh when I inquired why I hadn't been informed, and then she said, "Well, we thought you'd be more help staying back." Remaining behind? What can you help with? I asked, attempting to speak steadily. I had the ideal opportunity to jump in as if it were the most apparent thing in the world when my cousin Madison, 30 degrees Fahrenheit, entered the room with her twins. The children. It just made sense for you to stay and watch them since you get along so well with them. Let me explain. Madison and Rachel have 4 children under the age of 4. Madison's twins, who are just over a year old, and Rachel's 3 and 2-year-old children. They had somehow determined that I would be more than happy to stay behind and monitor them all without even consulting me. I forgot about my dinner and just stared at them in shock. So you organized this entire trip without inviting me and just thought I'd be fine staying home to watch the kids? Rachel finally put her phone down and shrugged. Yes, indeed. You don't have children or anything that might bind you, and you're always so dependable. It simply made sense. Made sense to whom? I looked at my mother as I inquired, hoping for an explanation that wouldn't make me seem like a total afterthought. We didn't mean to leave you out, honey, she added, smiling weakly at me. We simply assumed you would comprehend. You have always been the one in charge. The word responsible was like a kick to the face. I've heard that a lot throughout my life, including when I stayed home to assist with family gatherings rather than going out with friends, when I rearranged my college schedule to accommodate Rachel's firstborn, and when I utilized my vacation time to support Madison following her challenging twin pregnancy. When someone needs assistance, I've always been the one to step up. Yes, I have assisted with school pickups, kept the kids during crises, and even filled in for Rachel when she had work-related issues. Rachel had a late meeting last month, so I took a half day off work to pick up her children from daycare. After the twins began to crawl, I spent 3 weekends the previous month assisting Madison with organizing her home. However, this was really different. They made decisions for me as if my time, my desires, and my life didn't matter. They didn't even have the grace to ask. My mother attempted to patch things up by promising to bring me a memento, as if that would somehow make up for my exclusion. She promised to purchase you a lovely souvenir from Hawaii, as though it would make up for being treated like the family's unpaid babysitter. Meanwhile, Rachel pretended that I was exaggerating. You wouldn't really like the cruise anyhow. I take it that you don't like big crowds? Do you recall how uneasy you felt at Cousin Katie's wedding? Pardon me, as I spoke, I could feel my annoyance building. They were now determining what I would and wouldn't like. I was recuperating from the flu when that wedding took place 5 years ago. However, it seems that one incident had turned into a justification for them to keep me out of family gatherings. I sat there attempting to take it all in. This was intentional, not merely an oversight. They all know that I don't use Facebook, so I wasn't a part of the private Facebook group where they had been organizing this for months. They could have called, texted, or even casually brought it up at any of the numerous family get-togethers we've had, but they chose not to. My mother attempted to sidestep my comments about how painful it was to be left out. We had no intention of upsetting you. It was simply useful, sensible for them. Soon after, I departed because I was too upset to continue the conversation. It was a blur on the way home. Recollections of all the times I had sacrificed everything for them, put their needs ahead of my own, and dropped everything to aid them kept coming back to me, making it difficult for me to concentrate on the road. However, as the days went by, the rage evolved into something more profound. It was more than just the journey. It has to do with how my family perceives me. I don't have any wants, goals, or desires of my own. Simply said, I'm the reliable one, the helper, and the person they can rely on to make sacrifices when it suits them. I've mentally rehearsed the exchange numerous times. I recalled spending the entire night with Rachel during the colic episode of her first child. How I assisted Madison in her quest for strollers and car seats that are suitable for twins. How I've never missed a child's birthday celebration or school function. As I gave it more attention, I came to the conclusion that this wasn't an isolated incident. They have always treated me in this manner. I didn't even realize how frequently my family took advantage of me because I was so ready to support and assist them. But I'm done this time. I'm not sure how I'll deal with this in the future, but I'm definitely not going to stay behind to watch the kids. Not now. Reddit, what are your thoughts? Have you ever found yourself in a comparable circumstance? I'll keep you informed as events develop. First update. Hello everyone. I appreciate all of your encouraging remarks in my earlier post. In the last few days, a lot has transpired, and I must disclose how things have gotten out of hand. I made the decision to make one final attempt to get on the trip after reading your remarks. In the hopes that we could arrange something, I texted my sister Rachel to inquire about going on the trip. Sorry, the cruise is sold out, was her irate reply. We made our reservation months ago, and adding individuals now is not possible. I informed her that I would be prepared to reserve my own cabin independently, even if it meant traveling to Hawaii on my own to meet them there or staying on a different deck. Even though I was still upset over being left out, I was making a sincere effort to be understanding. What did she say? Well, you would have to arrange childcare first if you did come. Everything has already been planned, presuming you will monitor the children. It dawned on me then that they never intended to include me. The explanation about daycare was simply that, an excuse. They had already determined that I would always be the babysitter in this household. I therefore made a choice. I had previously asked for time off for what they believed to be babysitting responsibilities. I choose to take the time off for myself rather than cancel it. A coworker recommended this lovely mountain cabin rental, which I found. It's quiet, remote, has hiking trails, and a hot tub with a view of a valley. I made the reservation right away, packed my things, and departed without informing anyone of my destination. Everything I needed was in the cabin. Just the sound of nature and complete solitude. No Wi-Fi, no cell service until in an emergency. Naturally, my phone was overflowing with texts the morning of their cruise departure before I finally shut it off. Mom. In an hour, we're heading out. When are we able to drop off the children? Rachel. Hey, we're taking the car seats to your apartment. Be prepared. Are you ignoring us? Asked Madison. We have to stick to our timetable, therefore this isn't humorous. Mom. Please answer your phone, honey, she said once again. Everyone is waiting. Then the messages became more obscene. Rachel. It's unbelievable how self-centered you are. Our flight is going to be delayed. Madison. This is utterly careless. We had faith in you. I raised you better than this, said Mom. The finest aspect? I had never really received confirmation from them that I would be watching the children. They simply believed that since I've always done it, I would. I'm currently sitting in this serene cottage and taking in the mountain sunset. I feel free for the first time in years, no obligations, no expectations, no last-minute crises to deal with. However, I am aware that this calm is fleeting. I haven't turned on my phone yet, and I can only picture the drama that will be there when I do. I feel bad for finally standing up for myself and upsetting the family dynamic, not for the children, whose care is ultimately the parent's duty. One commenter on my previous piece wrote, "They're not angry because you said no. And it's still on my mind." That struck close to home. They're upset because they can no longer control you. Am I mistaken for prioritizing myself at last? At the very least, should I have informed them that I wouldn't be available? It felt like the only way to let them know I'm serious after years of being taken for granted, even though I realize it wasn't the most mature thing to do. For the next week, I'll be at the cabin. I suppose I'll have to deal with whatever happens after that. Reddit, I appreciate you letting me vent. After I return and have addressed the fallout, I will provide another update. Second update. Hello, Reddit? It took me a while to take in everything that had transpired since my last update. I'm in dire need of some outside insight because things have become worse. Do you recall that quiet cabin I told you about? Those 7 days changed my life. I read books I had been intending to read for years in the afternoons, hiked misty trails in the mornings, and soaked in the hot tub under the stars at night. I felt what it was like to not be at someone's mercy for the first time in my adult life. I found myself thinking back on my relationship with my family while I was there. Rachel needed assistance moving houses last December, so I had to postpone a big certification exam that would have furthered my profession. That weekend, she said, no one else could help her. My siblings gave me plain gift cards, saying they were too busy to shop properly, while I used my entire Christmas bonus the month before to buy presents for all the kids. Madison argued that she had no one else to care for the twins, so I was unable to attend my closest friend's bachelorette party earlier last year. The pattern remained constant. Their demands came first, then mine. But when I got home, the real drama began. Do you recall how I shut down my phone? I had hundreds of voicemails, more than 100 text messages, and 47 missed calls waiting for me. It included everything from threats to guilt tripping. Do you realize we could have called the police for child abandonment? Was the most memorable message from my cousin Madison. They were meant to be your responsibility. What I was reading was unbelievable. You never agreed to watch children, so how can you leave them? I wanted to handle this ridiculous threat, so I contacted her back right away. When she answered, I exclaimed, "You can't be serious. If someone refuses to accept a responsibility, you cannot report them for it." She gave a frightening reaction. "You were the reason we had to postpone our entire trip. Are you aware of the amount of money we lost? You were meant to be with the children. Assumed to be? By whom?" I retorted. "I was never asked. You all made the decision for me." She continued talking about my responsibilities to my family and how I had failed them. She then revealed yet another shocking revelation. "I've already spoken with my legal pal. What you did can be regarded as careless." I lost it at that point. "Your lawyer buddy needs to advise you that before accusing someone of ignoring a duty, you must obtain their real consent. I have no formal authority to make medical choices for your children, and my apartment isn't even child-proofed. Have you considered that?" She ended the call. Then Rachel's flurry of messages arrived. It seems that she was so stressed that she was only able to enjoy half of the cruise and had to leave her children with a neighbor. She wrote, "You've ruined Aunt Jean's retirement celebration completely. You chose to be selfish, which affected everyone's trip. All of this came at an especially difficult time because, just last month, none of my family members were available to drive me home from a minor medical procedure. Madison was preoccupied with her daily schedule, and Rachel had an important hair appointment. In the end, I had to pay for a ride-sharing service. Although more subdued, my mother's strategy was just as deceptive. Presumably assuming I couldn't avoid her at work, she called me. Her voice was brimming with disappointment as she started, "Your sister had to cut her trip short. Madison's non-refundable reservations cost them hundreds of dollars. Do you truly want to be this person?" I inhaled deeply before answering. "Mom, is this more about what you all want me to be or about what I want to be?" "What is the intended meaning of that?" she inquired. "It indicates that I'm sick of being used as the family's unpaid babysitter. None of you even take into consideration the fact that I have my own life, work, and aspirations." She emphasized, "We are family. Families support one another. Mom, help is something that is freely given. You're referring to obligation here. In addition, when was the last time I received assistance from any member of this family?" The ensuing stillness was telling. The intriguing part, though, is that my sister chose to make this public. On Facebook, she has been making ambiguous and hostile status updates about toxic family members and others who don't respect family values. The irony is that our extended family members are making comments like, "Some people forget where they came from," and "blood is thicker than water." I was initially turned away from the family cruise by these same individuals. My cousin even went so far as to email me a detailed list of all the fees they incurred due to my selfish behavior, including additional daycare charges, travel changes, and cruise tickets. She is requesting that I pay them back because, presumably, their careless planning has made me financially liable. A friend of mine who is a legal, not simply a buddy who knows a lawyer, burst out laughing when I showed her these messages. She asserted, "They cannot force you to pay for plans you never accepted. None of this operates that way." I've learned a valuable lesson from the entire situation. This goes beyond childcare or a vacation. It involves years of abusing my kindness and using my time and effort as a resource to which they are legally entitled. I've always had some emergency that needed my attention whenever I've attempted to plan for myself. Rachel had joined a book club, so last spring when I wanted to take a photography class, I ended up spending those evenings watching the kids. This summer, Madison needed assistance with the twins when her husband was gone on business, so I had to postpone our planned weekend getaway with friends. To help me deal with all of this, I've started going to a therapist. She noted that my family's response, the threats, the humiliation in front of others, and the financial demands, are all indications that someone they're used to controlling is losing control. Aunt Jean has been the sole bright point in all of this. I was moved to tears by her remarks when she called me yesterday. "I had no idea they excluded you like this. I would have stopped it right away if I had known. Family isn't meant to be like this." However, even her encouragement cannot make up for the hurt I feel when I realize how my family truly views me. I'm their safety net, their backup plan, and their free babysitting service, not their sister, daughter, or cousin. Going forward, I know I must establish clear boundaries, but I'm having trouble figuring out what those boundaries should entail. There's a part of me that wants to stop communicating altogether, at least temporarily. Even thinking about that makes another area feel bad. Reddit, what are your thoughts? With family members that don't even grasp the idea of boundaries, how can you set them? Have any of you had a similar situation? Third update. This will be my last update on the situation. Reddit. In light of the trip and the turmoil that followed, I've had to make some tough but essential choices regarding my relationship with my family going forward. These last few weeks have been life-changing. Now that I'm not always on call for family problems, my professional life has dramatically transformed. I am now in charge of a significant project. Last week, my manager even took me aside and remarked, "You seem like a completely different person. Your energy and focus have significantly increased." Until they were gone, I was unaware of how much my family responsibilities were impeding my career. I finally had the chat I had been dreading last night. I gave my mother a call. Since I still adore her in spite of everything, I knew she would be the most difficult to deal with. However, love is insufficient to excuse their treatment of me. Her voice was instantly eager as she responded. "I'm so happy you phoned, honey. Let's move on from this, shall we? I want to stop fighting now." I said in a firm voice, "Mom, this isn't a fight. This is my way of telling you that I need a lot of space." "What is meant by that?" Her voice changed from one of hope to one of worry. "It implies that I can't continue in this manner. I can't be a part of a family that doesn't respect me, even though I love you. Whenever I attempt to defend myself, I encounter manipulation, accusations, and guilt tripping. A few weeks ago, I would have been devastated when she began to cry. So what? Are you simply going to leave me? From your sister? From everybody? Yes, if that's what it takes to keep my peace. From there, the discussion took a turn for the worse. She employed all of her strategies, including money manipulation. Remember who helped with your first apartment deposit? Guilt about the children. They ask about their aunt every day. And even bringing up dad's health. This stress isn't good for his heart. The most painful part was when she mentioned my early years. She said, I gave up everything for you. To raise you, I put my career on hold. I didn't miss the irony of her exploiting her own decisions to blame me for mine. But I held my ground for the first time. I clarified that although I would continue to send birthday cards to the children, I would require total separation from the family's adults for the foreseeable future. What is the foreseeable future duration? She insisted. For however long it takes for me to recover and for everyone to realize that I'm more than just the family's babysitter. She ended the call. Instead of feeling sad as I had anticipated, I felt lighter. I adopted a more straightforward strategy with my sister and cousin. I disabled their social media profiles and phone numbers. I went through all of the family group conversations on my phone and unsubscribed. In addition to unfollowing them on social media, I modified my email filters so that their messages are sent to a different folder that I may review whenever I'm ready. There has been a noticeable shift in my day-to-day existence. I used to be so worried about missing an emergency call from my sister or cousin that I would continuously check my phone. My phone isn't tied to incessant demands from my family anymore. It's just a phone. I've begun taking back my weekends. I joined a local hiking club last Saturday to tackle a strenuous trail that I've always wanted to experience. I spent 6 hours going to a stunning top with like-minded individuals rather than watching my nieces and nephews. Next weekend, we intend to go hiking again. The class I mentioned on photography? Everything is going remarkably well. I have a natural eye for composition, according to my instructor, and I'm already organizing a picture show with several of my classmates for the spring of next year. When I was at everyone's mercy, I would never have had the chance to take advantage of these kinds of possibilities. Additionally, I've resumed dating, which was previously nearly difficult. It's incredible how much more appealing you seem to possible partners when you don't have to keep postponing arrangements to deal with family crises. Aunt Jean is the only person I continue to communicate with. She confirmed everything I've been feeling when she contacted me this morning. She added that she had experienced a similar situation with her own sister years prior, which helped me feel less alone in this choice. Walking away from people who don't value you, even if they are family, is sometimes the strongest thing you can do. I've learned from my therapist that this is about taking back my identity, not just about establishing boundaries. I've spent so much time being the family helper, the responsible one, and the dependable one. Now, I'm free to discover who I am without those titles. Yes, there are times when I miss them, like when I walk past my niece's favorite park or see something that would make them laugh. The cruise situation, however, comes to mind, as they were prepared to deny me a family celebration while still requiring me to give up my time for their convenience. Before, I never felt comfortable starting a 5-year plan for myself. I'm considering working part-time while pursuing my master's degree. My manager is very supportive of the tuition reimbursement program offered by my company. In addition, I'm saving for that springtime vacation to Europe by myself, which would not have been feasible when I was continuously devoting my time and resources to family responsibilities. My mental health has changed in the most unexpected way. I no longer experience the same level of continual anxiousness. I eat healthier, sleep better, and have even begun working out on a regular basis. You have an incredible amount of energy when you're not always running other people's lives. In response to inquiries in my previous post, I can confirm that I am still employed and have accepted a team lead position on a new project. My coworkers have seen how I've changed. You smile more now, one of them remarked. I was unaware of how obvious my attention had been to other people. Cutting off my family in this way may seem harsh to some of you. Perhaps I am. However, this seems to be the only option after years of being neglected, having my needs and wants disregarded, and being treated more like a service than a human being. I have no idea what the future will bring. They might realize why I had to do this at some point. They might not. However, I'm prioritizing myself for the first time in my adult life, and it feels good. I appreciate all of your help along the way, Reddit. Your feedback and personal stories gave me the courage to make this choice. I'm ready to conclude this chapter and concentrate on creating my own novel, so this will be my final update. My parents chose my brother's award over visiting me after a car crash. Now they want my savings to bail him out of a fraud scandal. I refused. About 2 weeks ago, I, 32F, was involved in a horrific car accident. Another automobile struck me from the side as I was making my way home from work. The force of the impact caused my automobile to overturn. I was later told by the paramedics that I was fortunate to be alive. I ultimately needed emergency surgery due to internal bleeding, 2 cracked ribs, and a damaged leg. After the procedure, I stayed in the hospital for a week to recuperate and try to make sense of things. It was difficult to be in the hospital, both mentally and physically. All I wanted was for my parents to come see me as soon as I woke up. I assumed that as soon as they learned about the accident, they would rush over. Even though I didn't anticipate them staying the entire time, I would have been so grateful for a visit. Rather, they were absent for days. I waited for them to stop by or at least give me a call, but they didn't show up. Before I even received a text from them, I believe it was 4 days. To answer your question, my parents were told what had transpired. The hospital informed me that they had contacted them several times and that they are my emergency contacts. A day following my admission, the hospital was able to contact my parents, but the nurses reported that they appeared unconcerned about the situation. That obviously upset me a lot, but I attempted to explain it away by saying that perhaps they were too busy or that something else had come up. Fortunately, my phone was still with me because my possessions survived the collision. Every day, at intervals of 5 to 6 hours, I texted my parents, but I never heard back. In the hospital, every day was a nightmare. I attempted to give my parents a lot of wiggle room because I really wanted to see people I knew, but it became more difficult every hour. Fortunately, I wasn't entirely alone because my pals, who reside in other states, were able to get in touch with some family members who live nearby. A family acquaintance came to visit me on the 6th day in the hospital and remarked in passing how wonderful it was that my brother was receiving recognition for his efforts at an award ceremony. I didn't know what she was discussing. She filled me in, but she appeared perplexed that I didn't know. As it happens, my parents didn't come to see me. Instead, they were at my brother's award ceremony. They were aware that I was in the hospital, but instead of helping me through a difficult period, they decided to attend my brother's special occasion. They were so busy getting ready for his big event that they had taken so long to get in touch with me. They were more concerned with their perception of his ceremony than with their daughter's injury. Let me be clear before anyone accuses me of jealously admiring my brother. I don't find it hard to see why they would be proud of him. I am aware that he is gifted and has put a lot of effort into all that he has accomplished. He has always been the golden child, which is the problem. Since we were little, he has received nothing but acclaim for everything he does, while I have largely gone unnoticed. He currently works for a large corporation and is really successful, therefore this award meant a lot to him. However, I was actually convalescing from surgery. A visit or even a phone call to check on me would have been the very least they could have done. I only wanted my parents to be concerned about me, and that was about all I was asking for. They didn't even blink an eyelash when I could have died that day. I was angry and humiliated. I attempted, but was unable, to explain my parents' actions. I then made the decision to contact them and let them know how offended I was. I texted them to express my disbelief that they prioritized my brother's prize over my well-being. I expressed my pain at them not even checking in on me. I didn't have to wait long for an answer for the first time since the accident, and to be honest, I wish they hadn't responded. Their words simply made me feel worse. At first, they attempted to defend their behavior by claiming that they couldn't miss my brother's award because it was a once-in-a-lifetime accomplishment. I informed them that if they had only taken the time to come see me sooner, they wouldn't have missed the event at all. After a while, they gave up trying to argue with me and told me that it was pointless to waste time coming to see me while my brother was out there making the family proud. That hurt more than words can express. It seemed like they only considered me as an afterthought. I wish I could say that their behavior astonished me, but it has always been like this. My brother was perfect as a child. Every action he took was praised. Every accomplishment he made, whether it was a scholarship, a fancy job, or perfect grades, was celebrated. In the meantime, I was constantly in the background. It was never good enough, even when I performed well. Every error I made was viewed as a disaster, and I never received the same level of help. I had the impression that they had already determined I was a failure and that nothing I did would change their thoughts. A week after my brother's award ceremony, my parents unexpectedly arrived at the hospital. I was initially perplexed because, following our last talk, I had given up on contacting them. I knew my parents well enough to understand that they weren't worried when they came to see me. They arrived with phony smiles on their faces and bouquets in their hands. They made an effort to strike up a conversation about how I was doing, but it was obvious that their thoughts were elsewhere. I advised them to just say what was on their mind because I could tell that whatever they were thinking about was going to irritate me. The fact that they showed so little concern for my survival was offensive enough. I didn't need their phony pity. I didn't have to exert much effort. When my mother learned that my brother had been arrested for fraud at his company, she burst into tears. It turned out that my brother was at the heart of a huge fraud scheme that was discovered by the corporation he worked for. He had been directing funds into his personal investments by falsifying the company's accounts. Following an internal investigation, everything was turned over to the police, and he was apprehended after a coworker alerted the superiors. He is currently being charged with major offenses like wire fraud, forgery, and embezzlement. My parents had apparently already spent a large portion of their cash on hiring attorneys for him. They came to me because they didn't have enough money left to pay his bail. They asked me to utilize the money I had saved up from my work as a project manager at an IT business to help him out. Additionally, they asked whether I knew anyone who could help in any manner or pull some strings. I had the impression that I was merely a tool to clean up my brother's mess, not even their daughter. I continued to experience mental and physical pain. It was unbelievable to me that they would turn to me for assistance after everything. It was like being slapped across the face. When I was laying in a hospital bed after surgery, afraid and alone, they didn't give a damn. But now that their favorite child was in danger, they needed me. I felt bad about it. Perhaps I ought to have assisted for the benefit of my family. The other side of me, though, was angry. The same brother who has always had everything handed to him, why should I save him? My parents have always protected him, so he has never experienced any repercussions. Now, they expect me to do the same. I informed them that I would not assist. I said that even if I did have the money, I wouldn't feel obligated to help him out. I made it obvious who they cared about more and reminded them that they hadn't even come to see me yet. They insisted that I was being self-centered and that families should be together. I couldn't get myself to care, even though they said I would regret not helping my brother. To be honest, my brother has always taken precedence over me. I was never enough for them, no matter how hard I tried. They wanted me to simply forget all the times they disregarded me, left me out, and made me feel unimportant now that they needed something from me. I felt in control of the situation for the first time in my life, and I wasn't going to let that go. I'm laying in my hospital bed right now, feeling a mixture of anger and remorse. Since I said no, my parents haven't spoken to me, and I know they're upset, but I simply can't bring myself to care any longer. I'm done trying to gain their approval. I've wasted too much time. AITA for standing up to my parents after everything they've done to me and not helping my brother. They keep repeating that family should always remain together, therefore I feel like I might be the villain. However, the way they have treated me throughout my life, and particularly now, is something I simply cannot get over. I feel like I've had enough, but I'm not sure what to do. First update. Hello everybody, I wanted to express my gratitude for your support of my initial article. I was able to maintain my position because of that. Although I didn't anticipate updating so quickly, a lot has transpired since then. I was eventually released from the hospital a few days after my parents arrived. I can walk, but my leg fracture requires crutches, and breathing is still difficult as my ribs heal. Going home, finding some serenity, and escaping the turmoil were all things I was looking forward to. The moment I arrived at my apartment, that hope was dashed. I knew things wouldn't go well as soon as I spotted my folks, who were waiting for me just outside my door. They must have called the hospital to find out the precise time of my discharge because I hadn't told them. They wasted no time at all. They began hammering me before I could even remove my keys. They were incensed and informed me that by not helping my brother, I had gone too far. It's the most irate I've ever seen them. They seemed more unhappy with me for refusing than they were with my brother's deception. They talked endlessly about how family should always come first. They said I was selfish and vindictive. They claimed that I was using this circumstance as a means of exacting revenge on them because I had resentment toward my brother. They didn't care that I was still recovering from my near-death experience a week prior. They simply viewed me as a barrier to their beloved son's rescue. They had the audacity to say that they expected me to step up now. They said that this was my opportunity to show that I wasn't a letdown and that I could be part of the family by acting morally. It was crazy. They essentially acknowledged that I wasn't related to them and that helping my brother was the only way I could make amends. Things truly took a turn for the worst when I informed them outright that I wouldn't do it. My mother began crying at my door, screaming things like, "We've already lost one child, and now we're going to lose two, and you're punishing us for loving him more." In contrast, my dad simply became more irate and wasn't attempting to shame me. He repeatedly accused me of being cold-hearted and self-centered, claiming that I had no regard for the family and that I would regret it once they were gone. To be honest, it was everything I could do to not lose it. I was told I was a bad person for not cleaning up my brother's mess, even though I was already fatigued from the hospital stay and could not stand on my crutches. The fact that my parents intentionally treated my brother better and that they love him more than I did just served to exacerbate the situation. I didn't give up though. I warned them that I would call the police if they didn't leave and that I wouldn't pay a dime for his bail or legal bills. After that, they eventually backed off, but not before insulting me once again. My brother's case made headlines a few days after that onslaught at the door. It seems that the deception was far larger than we initially believed. Evidence that he had been transferring business funds for more than a year, some of which had been laundered through fictitious business accounts in his name, was discovered by the police. Additionally, as part of a broader inquiry, they found that he had assisted several colleagues in concealing their embezzled funds. My brother is now being charged with conspiracy and money laundering in addition to fraud. He might spend a significant amount of time behind bars if convicted. The fallout has been harsh. My parents are really freaked out. My brother's reputation has been utterly destroyed after they boasted about his accomplishments to everyone they knew for years. People aren't buying into their attempts to control the situation by claiming that it's all a misunderstanding and that it will all be resolved. When word spread that his son was embroiled in a significant fraud case, my dad even lost a significant client. They're fumbling, and it's obvious they don't know what to do. Naturally, they came stumbling back to me. They made no effort to conceal their desperation this time. They indicated they needed my assistance, just this once, to get through this because they were under a lot of stress. They insisted that they would have an opportunity to fix things, and keep the family together, if I helped my brother, but I understood exactly what that meant. Keeping the family together meant preserving the appearance that their ideal kid had done nothing wrong, and fixing things meant hiding his transgressions. They've gone completely silent after I told them no once more. Nothing, no texts, no calls. They seem to have given up on me, to be honest. They most likely view me as a hopeless failure who abandoned the family when they most needed her. But what do you know? I no longer give a damn. I feel like I'm in charge for the first time in my life. Knowing that my parents just saw me as a fallback option, someone to control in case something goes wrong, hurts. However, it also feels fantastic to put myself first for once and to finally say no. To appease them, I won't help my brother, and I won't allow them to use guilt to get me to correct a situation they started. They must now deal with the repercussions of their decisions. Second update. Since many of you have been inquiring about my condition, the truth is that things have gotten even more problematic. It was my brother who sent me an email. Since he doesn't have access to a phone while incarcerated, he persuaded one of his friends, who still maintains his innocence, to contact me on his behalf. I was initially inclined to simply remove it without reading it. I assumed it was just another attempt to use guilt to get me to assist him. However, my curiosity overcame me, and I opened it. My brother said he was being framed in the email. Although he vowed he wasn't the mastermind, he acknowledged that he was a part of the fraud at his company. He claims that the superiors used him as a scapegoat to hide their own wrongdoing. He even said that while he was trapped taking the fall, certain powerful executives were still able to move freely. He pleaded with me for assistance, not for our parents but because he believed that I was the only one who could save the family from disintegrating entirely. I was genuinely offended by that line. Perhaps it was because my brother finally admitted how poisonous our parents have been. He acknowledged that they have consistently mistreated me and exploited him to stroke their egos. Seeing him acknowledge that was odd because he had always complied with it. I couldn't get rid of the impression, though, that he was just saying anything he felt would persuade me to assist him. He also said that I should help him by saving the family, which is what my parents have been saying ever since this fiasco began. I kept asking myself if there was any truth to what he was saying, even though I promised myself I was done with all of this. Could it be that he was actually being set up? What if I was mistaken about how huge this was? I wanted to know for sure, part of me. I therefore made the decision to investigate. I mentioned the problem to a buddy of mine who is a lawyer and whom I trusted. Since they were not involved in the case, they were unable to provide me with a complete legal breakdown. However, they did offer me some guidance on where to find additional information. After doing some additional research, I discovered that my brother's story wasn't entirely untrue. There was no doubt that he was a fraudster. However, based on my understanding, it appeared that he wasn't the one controlling everything. Evidently, he was not the only victim of the fraud plan. My brother was utilized as a pawn by several high-level executives who had been transferring corporate funds for years. Since he was responsible for overseeing specific accounts, he was held solely responsible when things went south. My brother was left holding the bag because these superiors had purposefully separated themselves from the grunt work. I felt torn after learning all of this. I was upset that he was involved in something so dubious in the first place. On the one hand, he was involved in a serious crime regardless of whether he was the mastermind or merely a pawn. He wasn't just an innocent bystander who unknowingly became involved in anything. He followed through because he knew what he was doing. Most likely, he believed he would never be caught. However, I did feel a little sorry for him at the same time. Knowing that he was exploited by those with greater strength and expertise in hiding their trails is difficult. It's obvious that those executives were well versed in their roles and made sure my brother would bear the brunt of any negative outcomes. If he hadn't been raised in a household that encouraged him to take shortcuts as long as you were successful on the outside, I couldn't help but wonder how things may have turned out. He most likely believed that he was untouchable because of our parents' unceasing protection and adulation. My folks were unexpectedly silent when I told them what I had discovered. Although they didn't want to acknowledge it, I believe that they secretly understood my brother wasn't an innocent victim. They persisted in promoting the same story, claiming that I was selfish for not prioritizing the family and callous for not assisting him, rather than admitting the reality. It was like speaking to a stone wall when you spoke to them. I've made the decision to stop interacting with them at this time. I've made up my mind and I'm sticking with it. No matter how much he wants to blame the executives, my brother still made his bed and now has to lie about it. My parents are at fault if they wish to continue supporting him. If the situations were reversed, I wouldn't ruin myself trying to help someone who wouldn't do anything for me. To be honest, I've not felt so at ease in a long time. Even though my family will never believe it, I know I made the right decision. I've been treated like I didn't matter for far too long, and I'm sick of it. Although my brother's predicament is awful, I am not responsible for fixing it. Once again, I want to thank everyone who has helped me along the way. Although it hasn't been simple, it has been a huge comfort to know that I'm not the only one who feels this way. Third update, I now have enough information to provide you all with an update, even though it has been more than a month since my last post. I'll start with what my parents did when they realized that insulting me and pleading with me wouldn't work. They made the decision to do something else, which was to make me even more miserable than I already was. They contacted several of my aunts, uncles, and cousins to express their disdain and selfishness for not helping my brother. They gave the impression that my refusal to assist was motivated by spite and that I was simply sitting on a mound of money. All they said was that I was a monster and should not be trusted. Only until one of my cousins contacted me and informed me that my parents were spreading unfavorable rumors about me did I learn the truth. They cleverly omitted the fact that they left me in the hospital and hadn't contacted me since, completely twisting the tale to make it seem like I was harboring resentment. I was only ever summoned to assist my brother. I was hurt at first. Even though I had defended myself, it seemed like I was being punished again. I believed that I would be left on my own with no one to support me. However, an unforeseen event occurred. Several distant relatives began contacting me rather than supporting my parents. It turns out that my parents' treatment of others and constant emphasis on my brother caused them to sour relations with a lot of individuals over the years. I was unaware of the depth of this. I started hearing stories from relatives I hadn't spoken to in years, and to be honest, they were all more startling than the last. My brother once borrowed a substantial amount of money from her husband to invest in a business venture, according to an aunt who informed me about it. Naturally, the plan failed, and my parents severed all ties with my aunt when she attempted to recoup her money. They even propagated the idea that my aunt was avaricious and unsupportive of her family. According to another cousin, my brother blamed a parking lot attendant for my uncle's car crash at a family gathering a few years ago. To keep the family from being embarrassed, my parents supported him and made sure the rumor didn't get out. They accused my uncle of attempting to damage my brother's reputation when he attempted to address them about it. There were several examples like this one, where my parents either covered up my brother's wrongdoing or silenced anyone who dared to speak up. My brother and another family member had a business partnership, but my parents ruined it because they believed the relative wasn't renowned enough to be affiliated with their son, according to one relative. It was both startling and reassuring to hear all of this. I wasn't insane. It's true that my parents have a long history of ignoring others and hiding behind my brother. For a long time, I believed that I was somehow to blame for my parents' treatment of me, that perhaps I wasn't good enough or didn't live up to their standards. It was never about me, though, as I now see. They constantly wanted to keep my brother safe at any costs. They even avoided family members who questioned them or obstructed their path. For those who wonder why my parents were so in need of my assistance, the answer is because I have established a strong life for myself in spite of their lack of encouragement. I've developed excellent relationships and managed my finances wisely in my role as project manager for a reputable IT company. I've saved money and made prudent investments. My parents knew I had the money, which is why they were so frantic. They failed to realize, however, that I didn't want to help just because I could, especially for those who have treated me like an afterthought my whole life. There has been an update on my brother's case. My parents eventually gathered together enough cash from loans and favors to get him out of jail after I refused to bail him out. However, the inquiry was far from finished. My brother made the decision to assist the authorities a few weeks ago. According to what I understand, he provided information about the higher-ups who were complicit in the scam, which aided in the prosecution's progress. He was able to receive a lighter sentence as a result of his cooperation. He will serve a year and then perform community service in lieu of years in prison. To be honest, that doesn't make me feel any better. His cooperation is commendable, but that doesn't change the fact that he initially decided to participate in the plot. Furthermore, I don't think this event will significantly alter my brother. I don't think he will quit having my parents clean up his mess anytime soon. For my part, I've decided to permanently cut off contact with my parents, which I probably should have done a long time ago. They are blocked on all of my platforms. I even instructed the front desk of my building to deny them entry if they returned without warning. I'm tired of serving as their fallback option, scapegoat, or emotional target. I'm surprisingly not depressed about it. I had assumed that leaving my family would be a great loss, but instead it feels liberating. I can now live my life without having to continually compare myself to my brother or ask for morsels of affection from people who would never show it to me. The family members who got in touch have been incredible. They've shown me that I'm not alone, and I feel supported for the first time in a long time. It's weird because after years of my parents excluding me, I've unexpectedly found a family. In fact, I'm excited to get to know these relatives better because many of them have invited me to family events that my parents won't be there. One of my aunts even expressed regret for not recognizing the situation sooner. She claimed that although she always thought something wasn't right with the way my parents treated me, she kept quiet about it because she didn't want to start a fight. She is now one of my biggest supporters, along with a few other family members. For the first time, I feel hopeful, even though I have no idea what the future contains. I appreciate all of your help and guidance during this trip. Reading your comments helped me realize that I wasn't insane for sticking up for myself, even though it hasn't been easy. It feels so amazing to finally feel like I'm in charge of my life. My parents chose my brother over me, hid my inheritance, and now seek my help after his fraudulent betrayal. My parents supported my brother after he slapped me during my son's birthday celebration. When he attempted to take their house, which was actually mine, years later, they pleaded for assistance. Eric, my younger brother, is 28 million, and I am 35 million. Favoritism was so blatant in our home while I was growing up that it was painful. My parents behaved as though Eric was a priceless treasure that had to be safeguarded at all costs from the moment of his birth, while I was just there. I still recall my 10th birthday celebration being cancelled due to Eric's cold. They couldn't risk him feeling excluded from the festivities because he only had a cold, not even a fever. As we aged, things only got worse. I was the debate team captain, a straight A student, and even received a partial scholarship for my SAT results. My parents, however, hardly noticed. They were too preoccupied in complimenting Eric on passing his classes with C grades. The same thing happened at every parent-teacher conference. They would ignore my accomplishments and concentrate on how they could support Eric in doing better. At the age of 18, I moved away with the intention of succeeding without their continual comparison. I earned a degree in computer science, worked several jobs to pay for education, and got a fantastic position at a software business. I met my wife, Darla, 33F, there. She is intelligent, kind, and, in contrast to my family, she genuinely acknowledges my accomplishments. James is our 1-year-old kid, and we were married 5 years ago. Eric, however, never left the house. After 1 semester, he left community college because it was too stressful, and returned home. At the age of 28, he continues to live with our parents and works part-time at a nearby video game store. He spends much of his time playing video games. This is entirely made possible by my parents. They cover all of his expenses, including his meals, bills, auto insurance, and game subscriptions. My mother literally broke down in tears when I suggested that Eric might want to look for a full-time job, saying that I was being too harsh on her sensitive little boy. We threw James's first birthday celebration at my parents' place last month. They insisted, even though I didn't want to. Mom remarked that being a part of his nephew's special day would mean a lot to Eric. In an attempt to maintain harmony, I accepted even though I should have known better. The celebration got off to a decent start. We used streamers and balloons to adorn the garden. James was enjoying himself greatly in the company of his loved ones. Up until lunchtime, everything was going smoothly. I was searching the crowd for Darla after stuffing my plate full of food. At that moment, it occurred. Eric was standing just behind me as I turned around and unintentionally ran into him. His new limited edition gaming t-shirt got some of my food, which was pasta with marinara sauce, on it. Since I understood that gaming gear can be pricey, I instantly apologized and offered to buy him a new shirt or even pay for dry cleaning. Eric flipped out rather than accept my apology. He began to yell that I always ruin everything for him as his face flushed. He cited instances from our early years when he claimed that I intentionally attempted to harm him, such as when I broke his game console by tripping over its wire. I was 12, he was 5, or when I received the last piece of pizza at his 10th birthday celebration. I hadn't eaten all day because I was helping set up his party. The room fell silent. We had everyone's attention. Eric gave me a forceful slap across the face before I could fight myself. The room was silent as the sound reverberated. My cheek ached, but the next thing that transpired hurt even more. My mother hurried over to fuss over Eric, not to see how I was doing. She began to inquire about his well-being and whether he required ice for his hand after he slapped me. As though I had done something wrong, my dad simply stood there with his arms crossed and gave me a disapproving look. I surveyed the space. James, who had begun to weep from the chaos, was being held by my wife, who was standing there in shock. While some people glanced away awkwardly, others murmured to each other. I stood there with a red mark on my cheek, and there was Eric, being comforted by our mother. I asked my parents whether they truly approved of their son being beaten at his own child's birthday celebration when I had finally found my voice. My mother's reaction? "You're older, you should know better. Look what you did to his new shirt. You know how much he loves his gaming merchandise. He's saved up for weeks to buy that." I lost it at that point. Years of repressed annoyance were released. I told them that throughout his life, they had allowed Eric to act in this way. They had never reprimanded him, encouraged him to improve, or held him responsible for anything. I brought up the fact that, at 28, he was still living at home and playing video games, when I had put a lot of effort into building my life since I was 18. I explained that Eric had a gaming tournament that day, thus they had missed my college graduation. How they were so preoccupied with making sure Eric didn't feel excluded that they hardly assisted with my wedding. How Eric felt uncomfortable around infants, thus they had only been to see James twice since he was born. If I couldn't respect my brother, my dad became irate and urged me to leave their home. That's exactly what I did. I told my wife we were going, scooped up my son, and left. "Look how upset Eric is now," was the reason my mother broke down in tears, not the fact that I was going. The calls and messages began to come in later that day. I had to apologize to Eric, my parents informed me over the phone. He apparently locked himself in his room and wouldn't go because he was so unhappy about his damaged shirt. Some family members called to let me know that I should have recognized Eric's sensitivity and refrained from provoking him by spilling food on him. According to other texts, I was being dramatic about a little slap, and should be more understanding because I'm the older brother. Eric, my parents, and the family members who stood up for him were all blocked by me. Some relatives who were present at the time of the incident expressed their support for me, stating that they had always seen how unfairly I was treated but had refrained from speaking out to prevent creating a scene. Too late, too little. Now, a month has passed. My wife completely agrees with my decision to cut off communication. She stated that she never wants James to believe that hitting people is acceptable or that he must put up with abuse because it originates from his family. Some family members claim that since Eric is my younger brother, I should forgive him and that I am being too harsh. However, I fail to see why, simply because we are related, I should continue to put up with mistreatment. First update: I haven't communicated with my family in 2 years. The absence of their incessant drama has brought tranquility to life. At 3 years old, James is doing well. In addition, we have a 6-month-old daughter named Emma. In addition to purchasing a larger home and receiving advancements at work, Darla and I have been content with our lives as a family of 4. Everything changed last week when I received a call from an unidentified number. My mother was crying uncontrollably. Her cries made it difficult for me to grasp what she was saying at first. I was shocked by what I heard when she eventually relaxed enough to talk. Eric was selling their house after somehow getting it transferred into his name. They had been given 2 weeks to vacate by him. There was nowhere for them to go. But the biggest shock wasn't even that. I was stunned to learn that the house had truly always been in my name. Mom says my grandfather left the house to me in his will when he died 15 years ago. I had just started college at the age of 20. Due to their own plans, my parents never disclosed this inheritance to me. In an attempt to persuade me to give the house to Eric when he was more stable, they had been waiting for the right time to tell me that they wanted Eric to ultimately own it. They resided in my house for 15 years without claiming it as their own. They allowed Eric to live there for free for 15 years while I worked several jobs to pay for my own place. While they saw me struggle to save for a down payment on my first home, they kept this a secret for 15 years. Mom started sobbing as she talked about how they never imagined Eric would turn on them in this way. He had been behaving oddly for several months, apparently. He had begun discussing moving to a different state to live with some buddies who played online games. They required funds for streaming equipment and a game setup. At that point, he began inquiring about who owned the residence. How Eric was able to get the house registered in his name is still a mystery to me. He took care of the paperwork during their trip last month, according to Mom, who kept saying it. I can only presume he falsified my signature because I never signed any transfer forms. The situation's irony is nearly comical. Since the house was genuinely mine, the same parents who evicted me from their home 2 years ago are now pleading with me for assistance. The brother who attacked me during my son's birthday celebration has now betrayed them by attempting to take my belongings. Mom talked on the phone for an hour about how they were going to be homeless and that they had nowhere else to go because they had spent all of their savings on Eric over the years, including paying for his failed college attempt, purchasing his gaming gear, paying for his insurance and car payments, and even paying for his convention attendance. She also disclosed that Eric's behavior worsened after I stopped communicating with him. He declared he was going to become a professional gamer and completely quit his job. He played games all day and streamed to his modest internet fan base at night. He would have tantrums, smash things, and threaten to move out when they suggested he look for a job. My father also picked up the phone. He attempted to defend their conduct by claiming that they just had their 2 sons' best interests in mind, that they had intended to ultimately notify me about the bequest, and that they never imagined Eric would act in such a way. He even went so far as to suggest that perhaps none of this would have occurred if I had kept in touch. Without saying anything, I hung up. I received more calls from different family members pleading with me to assist my parents. Some people made an effort to guilt-trip me by bringing up their advanced age and vulnerability. Others said I was being just as evil as Eric by not helping them. Darla believes that since they are still my parents and appear to sincerely regret their situation, we ought to assist them, but I find it difficult to sympathize. For 15 years, they misled me about my own property. While I put a lot of effort into purchasing my own home, they let their golden child to reside there for free. When he attacked me in front of my family, they stood up for him. The only reason they contacted me now was to ask for something. To find out how Eric was able to get the house in his name, I got in touch with a lawyer. The attorney attested to the fact that my grandfather's will did, in fact, leave me the house. Because I never signed any transfer forms, she is investigating the documents Eric used to transfer the property and concludes that his claim to the house would not stand up in court. She added that we could file a lawsuit against him for forgery. I'm unsure right now. Since my parents are still my parents in spite of everything, I have a part of me that wants to help them. However, I also believe that they deserve this because they deceived me and allowed Eric to continue doing so for so long. Perhaps this is the wake-up call they've been waiting for to realize the true nature of their beloved golden child. First update. Although it wasn't simple, my lawyer assisted me in regaining the residence. Yes, Eric had falsified my signature on a number of documents. Additionally, he falsely claimed to have my power of attorney while lying to other agencies. After nearly 3 months of legal proceedings, Eric has been evicted and the house is once again in my name. I gained additional knowledge regarding what truly transpired during the court processes. For months, Eric had been organizing this. He had discovered my grandfather's will while searching through our parents' old papers. He began looking into ways to transfer property ownership after realizing the house was legally mine. He even used a fictitious name to join some internet communities on real estate fraud. The quality of the fake documents was very high. According to my attorney, Eric ought to have had assistance from a property law expert. Later on, we discovered that he had been using money he borrowed from our parents to pay an internet consultant, claiming the money was for gaming equipment. Eric lost it all when the police arrived to evict him. He locked himself in his room and wouldn't leave. After hours of haggling, he eventually agreed to go when the door was threatened to be broken. He would not stop yelling that we were all out to destroy his life and that everyone was against him. I was urged by my parents to allow them to remain in the house. After obtaining my location from a family member, they arrived at my house and genuinely collapsed in the driveway. They have nowhere else to go, Mom said, sobbing. Dad was crying, something I had never seen him do before, and he was apologizing for keeping the truth about my inheritance a secret. They acknowledged that they had used up all of their retirement funds on Eric, including loans they had taken out to finance his gaming career, costly gaming settings, car payments, insurance, and the tuition for the one semester he attended college. They had genuinely thought that one day he would succeed as a streamer and repay them. At last, Dad acknowledged that they had overindulged Eric. He claimed that over the years, they had observed indications of his manipulative behavior but had consistently made excuses for him. They believed he would eventually mature and become responsible if they provided him with adequate time, resources, and support. Mom disclosed the ways in which Eric had deceived them on the house transfer. He had persuaded them that it was merely a formality to assist him in launching a gaming company. He assured them that after he became a successful streamer, he would look after them forever. They wanted to be sure their baby boy wouldn't turn on them, so they trusted him. Darla and I talked it over, and I agreed to let them stay under certain restrictions. In order to remind them that they are living in my home, they must first pay rent, which is not market rate because they are now on a fixed income. Second, if they wish to have any kind of contact with me or their grandchildren, they must go to family therapy. Third, without my express consent, they are never allowed to let Eric into the house. The eviction was not well received by Eric. He began threatening everyone, including Darla, our parents, and myself. He accused me of turning our parents against him and wrecking his life. Since it was his home, and he had nowhere else to go, he insisted that I allow him to return. I kept all of his threatening messages in case we needed them later, and I banned his number. Eric was couch surfing at his gaming pals' houses when I last heard from him. His ambitious intentions to move in with his online pals apparently fell through when they discovered he was broke. Since he is my brother, other family members advised me to assist him, but I declined. He attempted to use forgeries and fraud to steal my residence. In my opinion, he is no longer my brother. Third update. It has been an interesting 6 months. As agreed upon, my parents have been going to therapy and paying their rent on time. Although it's a gradual process, they are attempting to mend our friendship. There are fresh disclosures every week regarding the various ways in which their partiality harmed both of their boys. At last, Mom acknowledged that they felt bad for allowing Eric. It seems that they were having financial difficulties when Eric was born, so they were unable to provide him with the same luxuries that I enjoyed throughout my early years. They began to overindulge him in order to make up for it. What began as purchasing him additional toys evolved into a lifetime of condoning misbehavior. During one therapy session, Dad lost it when he saw how their behavior made Eric into an entitled monster and drove me away. He acknowledged that they secretly knew I would be alright because I was a responsible and diligent worker. They therefore gave Eric their whole attention because they believed he required greater support to thrive in life. Eric wrote me a long email last month. He asserted that he had also been going to therapy and had come to terms with his errors. He claims that after being evicted, he reached his lowest point. His streaming career never took off, and none of his gaming pals wanted to take him in permanently. He currently shares an apartment with 3 roommates and works at a warehouse. Eric apologized in the email for everything, trying to steal the house, faking my signature, and assaulting James on his birthday. He claimed that treatment enabled him to see how his perspective of the world had been distorted by his parents' partiality. He promised to pay the rent this time and asked if he may live with our parents again. I turned down his request. I sent the email to my attorney, who suggested that I stop communicating with him because of his track record of deceit and deception. Even though I inherited the house, I worked hard to obtain everything else in my life. Even if he says he has changed, I will no longer tolerate his behavior. I continue to face criticism from some family members for charging my elderly parents rent. They claim that I'm being unkind and that families ought to provide unpaid support to one another. However, this is about boundaries and consequences, not money. My parents only expressed regret when they wanted something from me, allowed my brother to be abused, and concealed my inheritance for 15 years. They're fortunate that I'm allowing them to remain at all. Mom still occasionally remarks about Eric's difficulties. She said last week that he might lose his car because he couldn't afford his car payment. I quickly put an end to that by telling her that he is an adult who attempted to defraud me out of my house. If they wish to, they can assist him, but not while residing in my home. Darla says we should ask them to dinner occasionally so they can see their grandchildren, but she believes I'm being fair. Every now and then, James inquires about his grandparents. I'm thinking about it, but I'm not yet prepared for frequent family get-togethers. The treachery is still too recent. This setup works for the time being. I have authority over my property, my parents have a secure place to live, and Eric is at last coming to terms with the repercussions of his behavior. Clear limits and punishments can sometimes improve family relationships. I've discovered that being family does not entail being exploited by others. It entails respecting one another's limits and being accountable to one another. The conclusion. My mom remarried, brought in her husband and stepdaughter, who insulted me and damaged my things. Now, they seized my house during my trip. It never occurred to me, 27 degrees Fahrenheit, that I would write an article like this, yet here we are. It all began when I was seated in our living room and informed by my parents that they were divorcing. I was already living with them, saving money, and working a regular office job. There was no fighting or yelling during the divorce. It was just two people who had grown apart and had different goals in life. I think I handled it quite well because I had anticipated it. They were living parallel lives under one roof, and family dinners had grown infrequent. I continued our pizza and sci-fi movie habit by spending every other weekend with Dad, 59 million, who moved to an apartment across town. A year after the divorce, Mom, 59F, met my now stepfather, 57M, and everything changed drastically. One morning, she was so excited that she virtually floated home. She declared, "I've met someone special," during breakfast. "He has a daughter in college. Wouldn't it be nice to have a sister?" My stepfather and his daughter, 21F, came into our home after they were married in a matter of months. Everything began to come apart at that point. When grown-ups were present, my stepsister might have looked like an angel in her expensive clothing, but when they weren't, she was someone else. Little things were the first. The laundry would destroy my preferred work outfits. Coffee stains would inexplicably appear on important documents. My personal belongings would disappear and then reappear damaged. Even worse was my stepfather, who was often making disparaging comments about my lifestyle, appearance, and professional choices. "Don't you think that skirt's a bit short for the office?" he'd respond. Or, "Maybe if you spent less time on your phone and more time networking, you'd have a better position by now." I attempted to discuss these experiences with Mom, but she consistently dismissed my worries. She'd remark, "He's just being protective. He wants what's best for you." Over time, everything became too much to handle. I had spent weeks honing every element of a pivotal presentation while staying late at work. When I arrived home early one evening, I discovered my stepsister purposely destroying my presentation materials in my room. She had ruined my work with markers, leaving her hands smeared with ink. Things became heated when I confronted her and presented Mom and my stepfather with the evidence. The worst part? My stepfather accused me of mistreating his precious daughter, and called me a stupid. As if I were the one causing the trouble, Mom simply sat there and shook her head at me. I had trouble sleeping that night. I had made up my mind by dawn. Dad arrived to fetch me up 20 minutes after I called him. Mom came out to object as I was packing my things into his truck. She remarked, "You're overreacting? Why can't you just try to get along?" I looked over at her. "Your husband called me a fool, and you sat there silently. Your stepdaughter destroyed my work, and you did nothing. That's not overreacting, that's self-preservation." When Dad heard this, he went up to my stepfather. Security had to step in before things were physical since it heated up so quickly. It was like inhaling fresh air after being submerged when I finally moved in with Dad. It's time to stop being cautious. No more looking for sabotage in my room. A few days later, I received a note from Mom. "I can't believe you set your father against my husband like this. You're tearing this family apart." I didn't answer. Which family was she referring to? The one where I was verbally abused by her husband? Where did her stepdaughter ruin my belongings? I concentrated on my work and saving money rather than obsessing over it. I brought meals from home, while my coworkers went out for fancy lunches. I stayed late and took on more work when others went out to bars after work. I contribute a sizable amount of my monthly salary to my future home fund. I eventually purchased a home with 2 bedrooms, a bathroom, a kitchen with granite countertops, and a backyard where I could grow a garden after 3 years of diligent saving. It was all mine, purchased with my own funds after years of diligent effort and cautious saving. I made the decision to throw a housewarming celebration, and I made it clear that Mom could attend. But not my stepsister or stepfather. She concurred. On the day of the party, however, they were all present when I opened the door. "Surprise?" Mom whispered feebly, observing my face. As soon as he saw the hardwood flooring and crown molding, my stepfather began to critique everything, his lips quivering. His statement, "It's nice," sounded anything but. With her nose in the air, my stepsister walked around teasingly about how little the kitchen was and how she would purchase a larger home with a swimming pool. I was done. "Really? That's interesting. What job are you planning to buy it with?" She flushed. "I have prospects." When I said, "Prospects aren't paychecks. Last I heard, you were still living off your dad's credit card." My stepfather took a menacing stride forward as his face grew scarlet with anger. Mom gave me a pitying glance over her shoulder as she swiftly escorted them out after grabbing his arm. I was trembling with rage as they went, but I also felt oddly relieved. At last, I had confronted them, in my own house, according to my own rules. My true friends joined me in celebrating my accomplishment as the celebration went on. I had assumed that would be the end of it, but I had no idea that things would grow much worse. I have to go to work now, so I'll update this post tomorrow with what transpired. Is it wrong of me to confront them? In my opinion, they showed up to disparage all I've worked so hard for even though they weren't invited. First update? Since then, a lot has transpired, and I feel uneasy about my present circumstances. I had an opportunity when my supervisor called me into his office 3 months after the housewarming catastrophe. For a 2-week absence, our organization needed someone to manage a significant project at another branch. My house, especially my indoor garden, was my biggest worry, even though it was a fantastic opportunity for my job. Delicate orchids, temperamental peace lilies, and my pride and joy, a rare bird of paradise that had just begun to flower, were among the many plants I had grown during the previous few months. I couldn't stomach the idea of going back to dead plants, and each one required a different kind of care. I swallowed my pride and drove to Mom's house after weighing my options. I knew she had a green thumb, but we hadn't talked much since the housewarming incident. In addition, I believed that this might be an opportunity to mend our relationship, just Mom and me, without the involvement of my stepsister or stepfather. When I showed up at her house, she appeared astonished. "Is everything all right?" She ushered me into the kitchen and asked. I asked if she could take care of my house, especially the plants, and explained about the business trip. I should have known something was wrong because of the way her face lit up. "Obviously, with nearly too much enthusiasm," she said. "You are aware of my passion for gardening." I gave her the extra keys and thorough instructions on how to take care of each plant. She tucked the papers away after giving them a fleeting glance. She said, "Don't worry about anything. Simply concentrate on your work. Everything will be well taken care of by me." I dismissed it as my own paranoia, but there was something strange about her actions. What could go wrong after all? I thought she was just observing my plants. I told her my itinerary and emergency contacts before I left. I reminded her that I would be gone for 2 weeks. According to the schedule I jotted down, the plants just require water. Please don't invite anyone over or adjust anything. Although she gave a nod, I couldn't exactly read her face. Obviously, honey, everything will be all right. The fact that she had consented so fast in spite of our previous arguments, that she had hardly looked at the care instructions, and that she kept saying, "Everything will be fine," without addressing the plants directly, were all small details that I began to notice while I was driving home. That night, I double-checked every item in my home. Just in case, I snapped pictures of every room in my house. Despite feeling bad about not trusting my own mother, I even put a tiny security camera in my living room. I noticed Mom's car go by my street the following morning as I was packing my bags to go to the airport. She drove by carefully, as if she was checking something, without stopping or waving. She said she was merely running errands in the area when I later called her about it. I'm now writing this from my downtown hotel room. Even if the project is going well, I still feel nervous. Mom's behavior during our check-in calls has been odd. No matter what time of day I call, she always appears to be at my house. I hear strange background noises, such as TV sounds and clinking plates, which shouldn't be present if she's just dropping over to water some plants. She immediately shifted the topic when I inquired about my bird of paradise. "Everything is all right, try not to worry too much. Simply concentrate on your work." I tried to view the stream from my security camera, but it appears to have been disconnected. While watering plants, Mom says she unintentionally knocked out the cord and was unable to figure out how to plug it back in. Tonight, I spoke with Dad over the phone about my worries. He believes I'm being overly suspicious, but he also brought up Mom's behavior at the housewarming celebration. "My dear," he replied, "keep your eyes wide open. Have faith in your instincts. Even though I still have a week left, I'm thinking of shortening my trip. Am I going overboard? I simply hope I'm mistaken about everything right now." Second update. Well, that was far worse than I had anticipated. Things started to get pretty strange during my second week here, with excuses like, "in the middle of something," or "can't talk right now, everything's fine." My mom stopped returning my calls on a daily basis and instead started texting me back. I heard several people in the background when she finally picked up, including what sounded strangely like my stepsister's chuckle. The social media posts followed. Since I have blocked my stepsister, I don't typically check her accounts, but I received screenshots from a coworker who follows her. Selfies that she posted from what was obviously my kitchen were there. One caption said, "I love my new granite countertops." She was seen relaxing on my couch in another. "Watch Netflix while relaxing in my new living room." I was feeling nauseous. She had been posting these for days, according to the timestamps. She responded with heart emojis and the following when her pals inquired about her new location. I finally found my ideal home. I tried contacting mom again right away. Directly to voicemail, I dialed the phone of my stepfather. Blocked. Even my stepsister blocked me when I attempted to phone her. I called my neighbor next door in a desperate attempt to get help. She hesitated before answering, "Oh yes. Over the past week, I've observed your sister moving things. I assumed you were aware. According to your mother, you were allowing her to stay while she recovered." I could hardly hold the phone because my hands were shaking so much. Dad was furious when I called him. "Take the next flight back home," he said. "I'll see you over there." I was able to reserve a red-eye flight, which landed shortly after midnight. The first thing I noticed when the Uber dropped me off at my house, the house I had worked so hard to purchase, was that all of the drapes had been altered. I could see strange decorations and furniture through the windows. I tried my key in the lock with shaking hands. It refused to turn. I made another attempt, this time with more caution. Nothing. Suddenly, the key that had suited my own house perfectly no longer did. At that moment, I heard footsteps strolling around my house as if they were supposed to be there. The door opened before I could call 911, and my stepsister appeared, dressed in pajamas as if she owned the house. She dared to appear irritated at my presence, and her blonde hair was in an untidy bun. "Why are you in this place?" My brain was having trouble processing what I was witnessing, so I said the words in a whisper. "Obviously, living here," she grinned. "I've been here for several weeks. While you were off playing businesswoman, Daddy helped me move in." With my suitcase still in hand, I stood there feeling angry. "This is my home. Leave. Right now." She studied her manicured nails while leaning against my doorframe. "Yes, that isn't taking place. I feel very at ease here. By the way, the water pressure in the bathroom is fantastic. Acquire. Outside. Of course, my own home." Every word had enough edge to pierce. In reaction, she slammed the door in my face and laughed, really laughed. The latch clicked, and then I heard her footsteps as she left. With my bags all about me, I stood on my own front porch, shaking with anger. The flower beds I had meticulously arranged were illuminated by the yard lights I had put. I could see my living room through the glass, but it was no longer my living room. She tossed her jacket over my couch. My hardwood floors were littered with her shoes. I took out my phone and dialed Mom, my hands shaking. She sounded sleepy as she heard the third ring. "What's the matter? What's the matter?" I nearly let out a yell. "I just got home to find my stepsister living in my house. She says she's been here for weeks. Tell her to get out right now, or I'm calling the police." "Don't contact the police, please." Mom's voice changed from drowsy to frantic. "We'll be over. Just wait there, please. What other place should I go? I can't get out of my own home." The next half hour was the longest I've ever experienced. I watched the lights in the houses next to mine turn on as I paced back and forth on my front porch. Seeing me out here in the middle of the night, what did they think? A few automobiles passed slowly, perhaps debating whether to make their own police call. At last, Mom's vehicle arrived, driven by my stepfather. Still wearing their jammies beneath their coats, they hurried out. "What's happening?" I confronted Mom and made a demand. "Why is my stepsister in possession of my house keys? Why do you allow her to reside here?" At least Mom had the grace to appear uneasy. "She needed a place to stay, honey. She was unable to pay the rent increase when her lease expired. Your home was just sitting there, unoccupied." "Just sitting there? Vacant? It's my home. You weren't entitled." As if it clarified everything, Mom added, "The girl needed somewhere to live. Anyway, your house is too large for one person." I kept my eyes on my mother's face, hoping for some recognition of how totally she had violated my confidence. Rather, she only stood there, offering justifications for the unacceptable. As always when I was younger, my stepfather went forward with his chest puffed out. "Look, telling you about her moving in was pointless. You would have simply refused?" "I would have said no, of course. I can't even enter my own home since the locks have been changed." "Anyway, they needed to be changed," he replied, dismissively waving his hand. "I was kind to you." I gaped at him in shock. "You know that's against the law, don't you? Changing the locks on someone else's property is not an option." He sneered. "Legal, illegal. It's finished now. This house is too large for just you, and she needs somewhere to stay." I whispered, lowering my voice to a perilous whisper. "Get her out. Get her out of here or I'll call the cops." That recognizable sneer twisted my stepfather's cheeks. You're not going to do it. Mom moved forward, her hands clenched. That's it if you call the police. I'll never talk to you again. Do you want it that way? To utterly ruin this family? I let forth a rough, acrid laugh. This family? Do you mean the time you allowed your husband to occupy my home without permission? That household? Rather than answer, they turned and left me there with my bags as they entered my house. With a last click, the door shut behind them. As I took out my phone, my hands stopped shaking. Don't hesitate any longer. No more attempting to maintain harmony. Even though Dad believes I made the correct decision, I can't get Mom's vow to never talk to me again out of my mind. Third update. When I dialed 911, things proceeded swiftly. 2 police cars with bright lights arrived in less than 20 minutes. I told the officers what was going on, and the neighbors were clearly awake now, watching from behind their curtains. Are you the legitimate owner? The officer inquired. Using my phone, I retrieved the property records and screenshots of my stepsister's social media posts demonstrating her move into her new place. I said, yes, I do have all the paperwork. I gave my mother a key so she could water my plants while I was gone on business. Rather, they changed all the locks and moved my stepsister in. The doorbell was rung by the officer. After a long silence, there were shuffles coming from within. The door opened at last. As they stood there, my mother, stepfather, and stepsister made a vain attempt to project confidence. Good evening, said the cop. Everyone inside must provide identification and proof of residency. My stepfather took the stage, speaking in his most convincing business voice. There was a miscommunication. My daughter is permitted to remain here by my stepdaughter. She is attempting to stir trouble after they had a falling out. That is untrue, I interrupted. I never granted authorization. While I was out on business, they exploited me. Inquire about the locks. They will acknowledge that they altered them without telling me. The first thing my stepfather said was, the old locks were defective. You admit that you changed the locks without the homeowner's consent? The officer paused to take notes. My stepsister came forward, dread taking the place of her previous arrogance. Daddy assured me things would be all right. He claimed that after she grew accustomed to the concept, she wouldn't mind. Changing locks on someone else's property and occupying their home without permission constitutes illegal entry, the officer replied, glaring at my stepfather. We will need to request that you and your daughter visit the station. Mom burst into tears. This is simply a family issue, please, we can resolve this. Your husband and stepdaughter have admitted to changing locks and occupying property without the owner's consent, the officer sternly retorted. It is illegal to do so. After that, everything occurred pretty fast. As they escorted my stepsister to the patrol car, she began to cry. For the first time, my stepfather remained silent despite his fury turning his face crimson. As they took her husband and daughter away, Mom shook on the porch. I called an emergency locksmith with the authorities' assistance, and he came an hour later. Mom eventually spoke as he sought to get me back into my own house. How were you able to? She hardly raised her voice above a whisper. How could you harm your own family in this way? Looking at her, this lady who had spent years choosing everyone else over me, I felt oddly at ease. You stated long ago that they were your true family, Mom, I murmured softly. You sat there silently the day she ruined my work presentation. The day you turned away when he called me derogatory names. They treated me like trash every time you told me to be the bigger person. They were the ones you repeatedly selected. They will now have criminal histories, she cried. Was it what you were looking for? I answered, I wanted my mother to protect me. My goal was to feel secure in my own house. The only thing I wanted was for you to pick me. After completing his task, the locksmith gave me the replacement keys. I tested them in the lock as Mom watched. From now on, you are no longer my daughter, she declared, her voice trembling with rage. You have no right to ruin our family in this way. For the last time, I looked at her. The day you decided that your new spouse and his daughter were more significant than your own child, you ruined our family. I just quit allowing you all to mistreat me. She climbed into her vehicle and drove off. I entered my home, my transformed, violated home. All of my lovely plants had died from carelessness. My beloved bird of paradise was also wilted and brown. My stepsister had filled my cabinets with her belongings and reorganized everything in the kitchen. Designer clothes were all over my spare bedroom, which had been transformed into her personal closet. Later that day, the police made a call. They wanted to know whether I would file a complaint. I considered forgiveness, family loyalty, and Mom's tears. Then I recalled being gaslighted, abused, and told to just take it. Yes, I firmly said. I wish to file charges. In a frightening email, my stepfather threatened to sue me for his daughter's psychological suffering. Without replying, I sent it to my attorney. On social media, my stepsister made evasive posts about toxic people who pretend to be victims, but I suppressed her accounts. Over the weekend, I thoroughly cleaned my house to remove any evidence of their presence. I started over after discarding the dead plants. I installed better cameras and changed all the security codes with the help of Dad and his girlfriend. Mom sent one last text last night, saying, "I hope you're happy with what you've done. I blocked her number since you've ruined everything." Fourth update. A lot has transpired since my last update, which was a few months ago. The court case proceeded more quickly than anticipated. Rather than risk a trial, both my stepsister and my stepfather accepted plea agreements. They were both placed on probation and mandated to reimburse me for the expense of replacing the locks and for the damage they caused to my residence. Above all, they have a legal obligation to avoid my property. In court, my stepsister attempted to play the victim by claiming that she was only doing what her father had told her to do and was unaware that it was against the law. The judge was unimpressed, particularly after seeing her boastful social media posts about her new house. Until the very end, my stepfather remained haughty, accusing his lawyer of being spiteful and disrespectful. Mom attended the court sessions, but she sat beside them. She never gave me a glance. She made an attempt to approach me in the parking lot following the sentencing. "Are you happy now?" she inquired. "Your stepsister has a criminal record because of you. Is this retaliation?" I felt nothing except sympathy when I looked at her. "Mom, this is not retaliation. This is the result. They moved in without my consent after breaking into my house and changing my locks. How could that be acceptable?" As usual, Mom said, she needed a place to stay. I answered, "Then you ought to have allowed her to remain with you. Or assisted her in locating a residence of her own. You decided to steal mine instead." As she normally does when she loses an argument, she breaks down in tears. "You have my undying forgiveness for this. This family has been ripped apart by you." I maintain my composure. "No, Mother. When you decided that their enjoyment was more important than my well-being years ago, you tore this family apart. I'm just at last advocating for myself. I ran into my aunt at the grocery store last week. She made an effort to guilt-trip me by claiming that Mom was having trouble adjusting to our distance from one another and that I ought to try to make amends. I informed her that some bridges must remain burned. I'm getting better sleep now. The more time passes, the less I anxiously check my phone for alerts from my new security system. The sunlight coming through my windows is helping my new plants grow. I'm going to see Dad and his girlfriend next month, and they call frequently. Out of habit, I occasionally find myself reaching for the phone to contact Mom, but the temptation is quickly squelched when I recall that night on my doorstep when I was locked out of my own house. My mother passed away years ago when she decided to prioritize her new family over me, so losing her isn't the worst part. Accepting that she will never comprehend what she did wrong is the most difficult aspect. In his last threatening email, my stepfather discussed family loyalty and how I had betrayed them through his attorney. One word was my lawyer's response. Family loyalty should have started with respecting my client's property rights. I've changed my phone number, installed cameras throughout my house, and blocked them on all platforms. This may seem extreme to others, but I'm not taking any chances in light of what they did. I've decided to sever all communication with them. Life continues. Last week, I received a promotion at work. The plants they killed are being replaced by new ones, and my garden is growing again. I recently started seeing someone who respects my limits and is aware of my trust concerns. There are some bridges that must remain burned. Sometimes severing links is the only healthy option, not just a choice. This is going to be my last update on the matter. It's time to put this chapter behind me and concentrate on starting a new life. A life free of poisonous relatives. Without being overly cautious. Without sacrificing my personal limits for those who have never honored them. I am at liberty.